The girl desperately searches for an opportunity to escape, looking around for shelter. The hope of salvation forces the heroine to act decisively and quickly. A sudden voice behind her ruins all of Vivian's plans for freedom. Her heart skips a beat in terror, because she was noticed by the one she feared most. Before her stands the second prince of the empire, whose cruelty has become legendary. People say that Aslan Rejef Astaroth is more of a ruthless beast than a man. However, the guy, with deceptive tenderness, offers her his company for a walk. With his ingratiating speeches, the young man drives the girl into a corner, leaving her no choice. Vivian, despite her panic, was prepared for such a conversation and thought everything through in advance. She takes out her only trump card, which can buy her a little more time. A cold doubt flashes across Aslan's gaze as he catches her in a lie. His words hit hard, because he knows that the letter is not from Sister Vivian at all. The girl is overcome with icy horror at the thought that she is holding in her hands a message from her husband's enemy. Trying to save herself, the heroine babbles excuses, but the trap has already slammed shut. In a desperate attempt to get rid of the evidence, she decides to destroy the letter. But the guy stops her actions and powerfully pulls the discouraged girl towards him. His eyes darken with rage, reminding him of the promise she made to be with him. Abruptly changing his anger to mercy, he feigns concern, trying to lull her vigilance. Tender hugs and sweet words hide the young man's true intentions. Vivian, in silent horror, understands what awaits her and cannot hide her disgust. All escape routes are cut off, and desperate thoughts of escape are replaced by panic. The girl recalls that the cause of all her troubles was a fatal will that changed her fate. After all, she was reborn in the world of the novel that she read in her past life before her death. The book's plot revolves around an ancient curse that turns the hero's descendants into monsters. The main character of this story was Aslan, a member of the imperial family who was unable to escape an evil fate. Behind the mask of a handsome young man hid a cursed man doomed to turn into a black lion. His fiancée in the original story was only obsessed with his status and wealth. To her horror, the heroine realizes that she has ended up in the body of that very villain, Vivian Eleanor. Her memory tells her that, according to the plot, Aslan will fall in love with her stepsister, the main character. At the end of the book, Vivian, driven mad by jealousy, will try to harm her sister. Ultimately, the villain meets a predictable and brutal end at the hands of the one she desired. Luckily, the girl was reborn before the start of the main story, getting a chance to change everything. She decides to live quietly and unnoticed, so that she can simply congratulate the main characters later. But there was a hidden detail in the plot that she didn't know about. Vivian was terminally ill. The realization that her hard-won life has a finite life drives her to despair. In this alien world, she had no one but a huge fortune and a year to live. The heroine decides to take only a small portion of the money in order to live the rest of her days in her own pleasure. She makes a will, planning to disappear so that her departure will not disturb anyone. The girl intends to leave all rights and property to her fiancé, His Highness Aslan. Having said goodbye to her role as a villain, she prepares to leave with a light heart so as not to interfere with the hero's happiness. Before she could even begin her journey, the heroine encountered bandits who surrounded her carriage. The bandits mock the young lady, who they consider defenseless, not seeing her as a threat. The girl accepts her failure with icy calm, but she does not sympathize with herself. The sword sparkles in her hands, and she makes it clear that they are the ones who are unlucky today. The robbers just laugh, not believing that the fragile girl is capable of resisting them. They don't suspect that Vivian is the daughter of the Empire's finest military family, Eleanor. After a short contraction, she begins to cough due to overexertion. A sudden sound from the depths of the forest makes her alert and go on reconnaissance. Approaching the source of the noise, she cautiously peers inside the old house. Behind the bars, she sees a huge, seriously wounded black lion, the sight of which makes her blood run cold. The familiar golden eyes and black fur make her heart skip a beat with a terrible guess. In a panic, the girl realizes that the wounded animal in the cage is her ex-fiancé, Aslan. She doesn't understand why the main character ended up here, because it wasn't in the book. Fear pierces her when she thinks that she herself caused this plot twist. Not wanting to interfere, Vivian still decides to help, because she cannot leave him to die. She doesn't want the damned prince to die ingloriously in the form of a silent beast. In exchange for saving her, the girl asks for only one thing: that he just let her go. With great difficulty, she manages to break the lock, injuring her hand in the process. Having freed the young man, she tries to calm him down, but she is overcome by animal fear. The next moment, the lion's huge mouth appears right in front of her face, threatening to tear her to pieces. Meanwhile, events unfold in Aslan's mansion that change the course of history. The will written by Vivian was supposed to be found only after her quiet death. Her departure was supposed to be the best outcome for everyone, freeing them from unnecessary ties. In her last will, she gave all her property to her fiancé without regret. The young man reads the lines of the will with irritation, considering it another stupid prank. He can't believe that this piece of paper is not just another attempt to attract attention. However, his assistant assures that this time, the girl's intentions seem frighteningly serious. The terrible news of Vivian's fatal illness makes the young man's heart skip a beat. Aslan asks again in horror, but the doctor's words leave no hope of error. Now he understands that her strange behavior was caused by the shock of her approaching death. Aslan orders the will to be burned immediately to avoid the emperor's wrath. But it's too late, because his father personally ordered the investigation to begin. This means that his main rival, the crown prince, already knows about everything. The young man understands that the enemy is using this situation to set him up. Exploding with anger, the guy demands to find the girl while she is still alive. Even if her body has to be brought back, this pathetic spectacle must be put on. Having received a cruel order, the butler obediently bows his head before his master. All the young man's thoughts are now only about what an unbearable woman she is. After 5 days of searching, the trail of the missing lady finally ends at the forest. Despite the dangers of the rainy season, Aslan resolutely leads the squad deep into the thicket. Now is not the time for empty worries, because they have been looking for her for 5 days already. Ignoring the cowardice of his subordinates, the young man rushes forward alone. He is sure that with her weak body, the girl could not have gone far from this place. However, his search is interrupted by mercenaries sent by his sworn enemy, Johannes. The hero's eyes fill with blood at the thought that these annoying guys are bothering him again. Suddenly, an ominous voice sounds in his head that seems vaguely familiar. This voice is his dark essence, which calls him to accept his ugly, bestial nature. The boy watches in horror as his hand changes, not understanding why the curse has awakened now. An unbearable pain pierces the entire body as the transformation gets out of control. Desperately resisting, he fights against the advancing darkness to avoid losing consciousness. A painful memory of the day he announced the end of his engagement comes flooding back into his mind. The young man mercilessly declared that she would never become a Grand Duchess, even after death. With cold contempt, he called her a villain of the Eleanor family, putting an end to their relationship. From the cruel words and a coughing fit, the girl fell to the floor, exhausted, shaking with sobs. The guy doesn't understand why his dark essence is showing him this particular moment. He realizes that this is an attempt to make him feel at least a little bit of guilt for her death. The hero mentally addresses the demon inside, accusing it of trying to absorb his soul as well. An inner voice promises that he will regret this day forever. A sudden sound breaks him from his memories, and the beast's gaze fills with rage. Seeing the girl in front of him, the cursed prince mistakes her for a murderer and prepares to attack. Having come to his senses, Aslan does not understand why the girl is here and suspects that it was she who locked him in. However, the broken lock and her lifeless body indicate that it was she who freed him. He cannot leave alive the witness of his shame, who saw him in such a state. Astaroth's curse is a terrible secret, and if she guessed who he was, she would become dangerous. His only option is to get rid of her in order to keep his secret. Despite this, the young man cannot allow her to die here alone and takes her with him. Vivian comes to in an unfamiliar place, feeling something warm and soft under her head. Opening her eyes, she realizes with horror that all this time she had been sleeping on a huge black lion. Panic grips her as she realizes she is trapped with the cursed prince. Finding the beast's blood on her hands, the heroine falls into shock from fear and disgust. Having overcome her fear, the girl provides first aid to the wounded animal and asks him not to overexert himself anymore. Her heart aches with pain at the thought of who could have hurt him so cruelly and how often he suffers it. She thanks Aslan tenderly, feeling a fragile trust growing between them. It seems to the heroine that for a moment he looked at her like a human being and not a wild animal. Accidentally touching his chest, she discovers a strange glowing inverted pentagram. This pattern is completely different from the seal from the original novel, which throws her plans into disarray. Suddenly, the cave begins to shake and rocks from the ceiling fall down, threatening to bury them alive. Realizing the danger, Vivian decides to immediately find out what is happening outside. She asks the young man to wait for her here while she examines the surroundings in search of a way out. However, the lion gets up and follows her, as if not wanting to let his savior go alone. A sudden realization hits her, and she finally understands where she is. This is the Cave of the Seal, the site of the fateful meeting of the main characters from the original novel. It was here that they, trapped by the storm, spent their first passionate night together. That night bound their souls with a scarlet silver seal that appeared on each of their chests. Thanks to this connection, Aslan was able to retain a human mind in the body of a beast. A cold horror grips the girl at the thought of why she is here, and not the main character. Suddenly, voices are heard from outside, confirming that the cave collapse is imminent. Armed men sent by order of the Crown Prince appear at the entrance. The words about capturing their target alive make her blood run cold. Vivian realizes with horror that these people have come for Johannes, and she finds herself in a deadly trap. Aslan pushes her out into the pouring rain, telling her to run while he holds off the enemies. The guy enters into an unequal battle, protecting the girl at the cost of his own wounds. Vivian looks at the hero's recklessness in horror and anger, because she asked him to take care of himself. Mustering all her courage, she decides to intervene and distract the attackers. The girl fiercely stands up for the defenseless, in her opinion, wild animal, threatening the monsters. The mercenaries look at the madwoman in bewilderment, deciding that it is impossible to leave witnesses. A merciless order to kill her bursts from their leader's lips and swords are drawn. The heroine cold-bloodedly lures enemies into her trap, bringing them closer to the entrance. At the right moment, she sets her plan into action, raining rocks down on them. Struck by her action, the young man says her name for the first time, full of shock and admiration. Having escaped from under the rubble, the girl realized with relief that she miraculously remained alive. Seeing the remaining mercenaries, she prepares to give them a final and decisive battle. With a sword in her hands and a cold smile, she exudes a deadly confidence in her victory. Frightened by her furious onslaught, the enemies cowardly flee, saving their lives. The tension releases, and mortal fatigue brings an exhausted Vivian to the ground. Aslan looks at her lifeless body with concern. Not knowing how to help her, the heroine smiles bitterly because she was prepared for death and even wrote a will. But she never wanted to die so miserably and ingloriously in the middle of the wild forest. Consciousness slowly fades, and she understands with sadness that this time it's the end for her. At the last moment, strong arms catch her, and in the rain she sees the hero's face. Holding her in his arms, the guy cannot understand why she went so far, risking herself for him. An image of the old Vivian, the one he knew before her dramatic changes, comes to mind. That girl was obsessed only with power and her own well-being, and not with love. He wonders why she, so selfish, stayed and saved him in the cave. A dark thought pierces his mind, that it would be better if she remained as she was before. Then he wouldn't have paid attention to her, and wouldn't have wanted to get closer to her. An unknown hunger and desire flares up in his chest, taking his breath away. He desperately searches for an answer to the question of what she did to him to cause these feelings. Yielding to impulse, the young man kisses her tenderly, begging her to open her eyes and give him an answer. The heroine comes to her senses in a luxurious, unfamiliar room, not understanding where she is. Waking up in a luxurious bed, the girl thinks for a moment that she has died and gone to heaven. Outside the door, she hears the doctor telling Aslan that there is no cure for her illness. The doctor's merciless verdict leaves her with less than a year to live, plunging the young man into despair. Out of impotent rage, the hero is ready to attack the doctor, unable to accept the terrible truth. Gathering her last strength, the heroine tries to stop him, weakly calling his name. At that very moment, the guy appears at her bedside, immensely happy that she has woken up. He gently reassures her, explaining that they are in his mansion in the south, and she needs to rest. As soon as she recovers, he promises to immediately transport her back to the capital. His next words shock her to the core. He announces an immediate wedding. Taken aback by this turn of events, she tries to get up, but he gently lays her back down. The girl is completely confused because she doesn't understand what's going on at all. With a gentle smile, the young man invites her to legitimize their relationship by taking care of all the formalities. What she sees in the document fills her with horror because this man behaves completely unpredictably. With her signature, she will forever become Vivian Eleanor Astaroth, wife of the cursed prince. In a panic, the heroine cannot understand why he is marrying her because according to the plot, he hated her. Her plan to live out the rest of her days alone falls apart, and the situation only gets worse. He continues his game, surrounding her with ostentatious care in order to lull her vigilance. His sweet promises to always be there sound more like a death sentence than a confession. Vivian realizes that he is trying to tie a woman to himself that he doesn't even love. A terrible guess pierces her. He knows that she knows his secret, and now she will not let go. In despair, the girl crumples the document, begging him not to go so far in his intentions. She tries to appeal to his reason, reminding him that she doesn't have much time left to live. Their engagement, concluded for political reasons, now became meaningless for both of them. With her last hope, the heroine asks to be allowed to spend the rest of her life alone. His face contorts with anger, and he doesn't understand why she's saying such terrible things. With a fiery gaze, the guy swears that he will not let her die and will save her at any cost. He orders her not to listen to the nonsense that others say, which frightens her to the core. Reluctantly pulling away, the young man decides that it is time to finish with urgent matters. With deceptive tenderness, he wishes her a good rest, promising to talk tomorrow. The girl is left in complete confusion, unable to believe what he just said. The butler notices with alarm the exhausted appearance of his master, but he only waves it off. The faithful servant recalls that, while wounded, he carried his mistress in his arms all the way to the mansion. The guy puts an end to his worries, assuring him that he is completely fine and there is nothing to worry about. However, the young man has a more important task that requires immediate execution. With cold calculation, he orders a thorough investigation of Eleanor's family. He is tormented by the question of why the daughter of such a noble family was brought to a fatal illness and why it was hidden. Meanwhile, Vivian can't understand why he is in such a hurry to get married, because it's so unexpected. She thinks with bitterness about her dream of spending the rest of her days at a resort, which is no longer destined to come true. The thought of having to live in constant fear next to Aslan seems unbearable to her. Madame's awkward approach brings her back to the harsh reality she so wanted to escape. The maid conveys to Vivian His Highness's request to have breakfast with him tomorrow morning. This news takes the girl by surprise, because he wants to discuss their marriage certificate. The thought of meeting him from the very morning makes her heart beat with anxiety and excitement. The next morning, the maids help her get ready, surrounding her with unusual care. The heroine does not understand why Aslan is so attentive to her, because this is not at all like him. She thinks it would be enough for him to just pretend that he cares about her. Remembering his words about salvation, she clings to the last weak hope of healing. The original novel did mention a cure for tuberculosis. The only way to get it is through Aslan, and now she needs to hold out until that moment. The new outfit, chosen by the maids, fits perfectly, giving her strength and confidence. The girl, realizing her situation, wonders what would be the most beneficial solution for her. The atmosphere in the room was friendly, and Aslan, to her surprise, behaved like a caring host. But the moment she felt attracted to him, he asked her if she liked the treat. The cook, touched by her compliment, promises to try even harder for her in the future. The heroine asks him not to go so far, hinting that they are both in the same position. Her words about not knowing what happened only push him further into action. He is sure that she has been waiting for this moment and is ready to reveal the truth about himself to her. His tender care and promise to always be there make her heart flutter with hope. However, she cannot believe that everything turned out so suddenly because it contradicts the plot. The question keeps spinning in her head as to why he is so different from the person she knew before. The young man forces her to sign the document, depriving her of all will. He whispers apologies, justifying his cruelty by saying that he can't wait any longer. In a panic, the girl does not understand who he is, the crown prince or a ruthless usurer. Her cries for help are drowned out by his powerful grip as he tries to finish what he started. A sudden burst of pain makes him double over, and the heroine instinctively rushes towards him. The guy brushes off her concerns, assuring her that his pain is nothing compared to her illness. Gathering her courage, Vivian admits that she had actually been obsessed with the idea of marrying him before, but now her only desire is to live out the remaining year peacefully, away from all the intrigue. She offers to break off the engagement herself to prove that she does not wish him harm. To her complete surprise, Aslan suddenly agrees, leaving the girl at a loss. Instead of a signature, the guy writes something on the back of the document, confusing her. He offers her a deal, promising to use all his family's resources to cure her. In return, if she remains alive after a year, the girl will have to sign a marriage certificate. To her fearful question about death, the young man answers with unshakable and frightening confidence. His promises of protection seem like lies, because she holds in her hands a contract with the devil himself. She understands that for him, she is just prey, which he could destroy at any moment. His persistence does not guarantee her safety, because who can stop him from killing his bride? The sudden idea of using Aslan to obtain the cure from the novel gives her a glimmer of hope. A desperate desire to live forces her to cast aside all doubts and agree to his terms. Her unexpected consent takes him by surprise, and she feels like prey caught in a trap. Thus began her new life in Aslan's mansion, full of uncertainty and hidden threats. Despite the deal, the girl understands that she cannot trust him 100%. She still doesn't know the young man's true motives, and is afraid that he might change his mind at any moment. Just in case, the heroine decides to pack an emergency suitcase to be ready to escape. The guy's sudden appearance takes her by surprise, and she barely has time to hide her intentions. With a slight grin, he reminds her that their conversation is not over yet, and that he called her. His remark that she slept with her clothes on reminds her of her constant readiness to escape. To get out of this situation, Vivian decides to play the role of a harmless and naive fool. She approaches him timidly, feigning embarrassment and submissiveness in order to lull his vigilance. The girl complains about the stuffiness and lack of suitable clothing, lamenting her difficult situation. Her pathetic attempt to garner sympathy by pointing to her emaciated body seems to fall on deaf ears. Hiding his embarrassment behind feigned irritation, he denies the obvious, which confuses her. However, the blush on his cheeks and the gentle whisper reveal the true feelings that he so carefully hides. Trying to regain his composure, Aslan abruptly calls for the butler to hide his excitement. Suddenly, he cancels all his plans, announcing an immediate trip to the city with Vivian. This unexpected proposal to go for a walk together leaves the girl in complete shock. Under the pretext of concern for her safety, the young man forces his accompaniment on her. The heroine is desperate when she realizes that her carefully thought-out plan is going awry again. Finding herself on a busy street, she remembers with longing how long it has been since she felt free. Painful memories of a past life full of restrictions and lack of freedom darken this walk. His care seems suffocating, and even in the crowd she doesn't feel truly free. She still doubts his true intentions, but decides to play along with him on this walk. He tries to appease her with generous gifts, offering to buy her any magic stone she likes. The girl politely refuses his generosity because without magical power, the stones are useless to her. His persistence and desire to spend money on her seem extremely suspicious and feigned to her. She gently changes the subject, pointing out that the magic stones are good for him, but she needs something else. Instead of jewels, she chooses an elegant rapier, revealing her true nature. She proudly displays her skill, calling on Aslan to watch her closely. The heroine challenges him directly, reminding him that she is the daughter of a noble military family and will not give up so easily. At this moment, her true, powerful nature emerges in all its dazzling and dangerous glory. A sudden cry for help attracts her attention, disrupting the fragile peace of the walk. With slight annoyance, she realizes that she has witnessed an ordinary street robbery. Not wanting to interfere and reveal her identity, the girl decides to stay away. However, the cry for help about the theft of her mother's relic makes her heart freeze with anger. Without a second's hesitation, the heroine rushes in pursuit of the thief, leaving the stunned Aslan behind. She fearlessly blocks the criminal's path, demanding that he immediately return what he stole. The thief angrily denies his guilt, but she insists that she saw everything with her own eyes. Her confidence and calmness confuse him, and he doesn't know how to react. The girl accuses him of stealing someone else's maternal heirloom, which only earns him contempt. The criminal, not seeing her as a threat, rudely orders her to leave before she pays for her insolence. With cold contempt, the heroine assesses the thief's pitiful fist, ready to withstand the blow. A sudden turn of events takes her by surprise when the criminal's hand freezes in midair. Behind the thief, the dark figure of Aslan appears, whose gaze promises a swift and cruel reprisal. His eyes are burning with rage because even he does not dare to touch her roughly, and this scoundrel dared to raise his hand. Having returned the stolen relic, Vivian accepts the gratitude of the girl she saved. Confused and delighted, the very same main character from the novel asks to name her savior. Noticing the approaching guards, the heroine understands that it is time for them to disappear immediately. She grabs the young man by the hand and drags him along, ignoring the desperate cries of the rescued girl. The young heroine watches them go with hope in her eyes, forever remembering her mysterious savior. Releasing the boy's hand, Vivian apologizes for her sudden insolence that broke their fragile truce. His sudden remark that she called him by his first name makes her heart skip a beat. He gently takes her hand, asking her to continue to address him as such, and not by his title. Such a sudden request confuses the girl, but the blush on her cheeks reveals her true feelings. Trying to hide her excitement, she jokingly says his full and official name. A gentle look and a warm smile disarm her, and she feels the ice between them melt. In an attempt to escape her feelings, she suggests going back, since they have already bought everything they need. His sudden approach and silence make her wonder why he started this conversation in the first place. She understands that this man is full of oddities, and his motives are completely unclear to her. Meanwhile, in a distant palace, his older brother reflects with a grin on Aslan's oddities. He anticipates that, thanks to his younger brother, he will definitely not have to be bored anytime soon. After their walk together, peace settled in her soul for the first time in a long time. Deep down in her heart, she felt relief, naively believing in his sincerity. She felt that if things continued like this, she would be able to hold out for a year in fragile peace. She thought that everything would be fine now, but this day cruelly destroyed all her illusions. A sudden meeting with her rival takes her by surprise, and she doesn't understand what she's doing there. The situation is complicated by the fact that her enemy is sitting at the same table with the crown prince. She is trying to understand where everything went wrong, because in the morning, she received permission from Aslan to leave. Her request to go to the bank alone immediately aroused his suspicion and distrust. Despite his insistent offer of protection, she was determined to go alone. Having somehow received permission, she got into the carriage, not yet knowing what disaster awaited her ahead. The girl's suspicions are confirmed when the coachman turns off the road, assuring her that it is a shortcut. The long drive and the unfamiliar landscape outside the window only confirm her worst fears. She accepts her fate with bitter irony, realizing that she was kidnapped and brought straight to the enemy. His brazen lie that the coachman made a mistake and his offer to rest only evoke contempt in her. Everything happens exactly as in the novel, and this impudence is worthy of the main villain of the story. Before her sits first Prince Johannes Friedrich Astaroth, Aslan's main adversary and rival. Unlike Aslan, the concubine's son, he was the prime candidate to inherit the curse. However, the imperial palace used black magic to prevent this terrible fate. Through a dark ritual, the curse that was supposed to fall on Johannes was transferred to Aslan. Now Johannes, out of love for his family, is trying to control this ticking time bomb. She understands that his interest in her is directly related to Aslan, and decides not to interfere. He tries to make small talk, admiring the beauty of the sea, but she remains cold. His empty compliments and conversations about the weather cannot hide the true motives of this meeting. With feigned tenderness, he calls her a precious friend with whom it is pleasant to share tea. Thanks to her, this place, according to him, became even more beautiful, which sounds like an elaborate lie. Trying to escape his clutches, she cites poor health to end the conversation. However, he goes on the offensive, offering her the services of a court physician on behalf of the imperial family. His question about whether her current treatment is enough sounds like a direct threat and a test. Hiding his true purpose behind a false show of concern, he criticizes his younger brother's carelessness. She understands his game, but she is already bound by a contract with Aslan and will not succumb to his pathetic provocations. Continuing her game, she defends Aslan, saying that he did not mean to abuse his power. With feigned admiration, the girl extols him as a man with high ideals. An attempt to escape further conversation fails when she is stopped by an unexpected guest. The cat's sudden appearance makes her wary because she knows about her ability to tame animals. This talent belonged to the original Vivian, and she is not sure she can control it. Giving in to the provocation, she takes the cat in her arms, pretending that it has already become obedient. Aslan's sudden appearance interrupts this scene, and his impressed look speaks volumes. He claims that she is too good for him and that he can't just take her away. Saying that she needs to be protected from dirty animals, he takes the girl away with him. Their tea party comes to an end, and with feigned sadness, he asks her to come again. The girl, in despair, realizes that her appearance looks like a trap. Vivian faints from excitement in the arms of her worried boyfriend. The young man is furious and vows revenge if anything happens to her. Johannes, with grim determination, is not going to let this go. Aslan suddenly appears and takes Vivian away, ignoring her pleas. The blonde, with an icy grin, hints that he knows her secret passion. The heroine realizes with horror that she has fallen into the clutches of another predator. She thinks with bitterness that for him, her feelings are just a play of instincts. The young man anticipates the moment when her interest will finally collide with his. Aslan's majestic mansion hides dark and dangerous secrets. Tormented by guilt, he blames himself for her sudden illness. His promise to never let her go again sounds like an oath and a sentence. Aslan bitterly realizes that he underestimated the treachery of his opponent. The memory of Vivian's meeting with Johannes awakens in him a blind rage. A dark obsession drove him to thoughts of cruel reprisals for the sake of possessing her. The girl sees nobility in him, unaware of the demons in his soul. Her blind faith in him only intensifies his inner torment. The guy remembers his cruelty with which he tried to push her away. The heroine, with bated breath, searches his eyes for the answer to the painful question. Confused by her directness, the young man tries to hide his true attitude. Despite her fear, the girl tries to convey her true feelings to him. Her desperate smile is her last attempt to convince Aslan of her sincerity. A sudden coughing fit betrays her weakness and anxiety. Those around her insist on her peace, but the hero gives orders with icy calm. Her words of sympathy haunt him as he walks down the dark corridor. The young man is tormented by the thought of what will happen when she learns of his beastly nature. He doubts she will be able to feel anything but disgust towards him after learning the truth. The thought of her possible death gives rise to a dark, possessive desire in him. He is tormented by the crazy idea of hiding her from the whole world so that she belongs only to him. The young man is frightened by this insatiable hunger and desire that she awakens in him. Vivian, with a radiant smile, finally accepts her true feelings for him. The girl is suffocated by irritation from the intrusive care, for which she blames Johannes. The heroine is tormented by vague doubts that the plot of the familiar story did not go according to plan. She clearly remembers that in the original novel, she was not the main character. Tears of despair well up in her eyes as she realizes that she has taken someone else's place. If this is not just a coincidence, then the next course of fate is already predetermined. The arrival of an envoy from the capital confirms her worst suspicions. The cold lines of the decree inform that Aslan and Vivian will not be granted permission to marry. The imperial order mercilessly demands their immediate return. The hero explodes with rage, unable to contain his anger at the insult. An incredible relief comes over the heroine, because the events are unfolding exactly according to the book. But her joy is clouded by a sense of guilt for having stolen someone else's destiny. Panic sets in, because if she doesn't do something immediately, everything will go to hell. In the carriage rushing to the capital, the girl realizes that there is no turning back. She bitterly realizes that no one has the power to go against the will of the emperor. Aslan's unexpected decision to go somewhere else first throws her plans into disarray. The girl is overcome with curiosity at the thought of his mysterious northern mansion. His offer to give a personal tour sounds like a promise of something more. The luxury and spaciousness of his estate amazes Vivian to the depths of her soul. The young man's words that she will have to get used to it hint at their future together. He proudly presents her with the apartment, which she is absolutely delighted with. Her playful curiosity is met with a huge hole in the wall of the adjoining room. A chilling guess about his intention to combine their bedrooms pierces her mind. The girl is overcome with indignation at his persistent desire to control her every step. Her faint hope of privacy is shattered by his unyielding and cold decision. His tender gaze hides an obsessive desire not to let her go for a moment. A gentle touch, and the news of a banquet in her honor take the heroine by surprise. She begins to understand that behind his actions there is sympathy that he himself is not aware of. The girl is frightened even by the thought that her bold guesses might turn out to be true. Her embarrassment comes out in the form of a ridiculous excuse to his worried question. Edith feels cornered, knowing she can't escape this golden cage. Despair grips the girl as she is led to a beautiful but joyless future. In the moonlit garden, a fragile and brief silence reigns between the heroes. The heroine is suffocated by unwanted attention, dreaming with all her heart of solitude. A cold horror creeps in as Edith feels the gentle but relentless pressure from the young man. Killian's simple question about his home feels like a test she's doomed to fail. The young man's sharp question pierces her polite answer, revealing his deep mistrust. A painful past comes flooding back, reminding her of a lonely world where everyone turned their backs on her. For a moment, Edith allows herself to hope for a new life, free from the stigma of her past. The guy's chilling reaction makes her realize that she has just made a terrible mistake. Edith desperately tries to shake off the past, but Aslan is adamant in his desire to protect her. The hero's piercing gaze promises her something more than just a fictitious union. The young man does not hesitate to challenge the entire world to become her indestructible shield. The guy's unexpected seriousness takes the girl by surprise, making her doubt his true motives. A slight suspicion creeps into her heart that his words may just be a show for the audience. She begins to understand the price he had to pay for her desperate act. The dark shadows of his political intrigues reveal to her the true danger of his position. His promise to take all her problems upon himself gives rise to a mixed feeling of pity and gratitude in her. The heroine's warm smile is her timid attempt to relieve the tension from his tired shoulders. Under the night sky, he is already looking for workarounds, proving that he will not back down at anything. Aslan's confidence conceals a subtle calculation, because every action of his is a well-thought-out move in a big game. The girl tries to break the oppressive silence, seeking salvation in a banal pretext. His sincerity crashes against the wall of her mistrust, leaving behind a bitter aftertaste. The hero understands that the way to her heart lies through atonement for the pain he caused her. The mysterious behavior of the young man behind the curtain awakens an anxious curiosity in Vivian. His unexpected tact gives her a brief respite, but does not relieve her vague doubts. The heroine's fragile calm is overshadowed by anxiety about the future, which is inexorably approaching. A sharp sound pulls her out of her slumber, and her heart stops in anticipation of trouble. An unexplained noise outside the door causes her to freeze, turning the room into a trap. A terrible guess pierces her mind when she decides to call the one she is afraid to see. Plucking up her courage, the girl pulls back the curtain, unaware of the horror that awaits her behind it. The sight of Aslan suffering on the bed pierces her heart with icy fear. Her panicked concern clashes with his confused state, creating chaos. A terrible guess about the reason for his torment dawns on the heroine, tying everything together. The ancient curse of this holy place now becomes their personal nightmare. A battle rages within the young man, where divine power tries to burn away the darkness. In an attempt to regain control, Vivian decides to take action, but her good intentions are dashed. The young man's iron grip on her wrist stops not only her, but also her heart. His desperate attempt to calm her down only highlights how vulnerable he is. In that moment of absolute vulnerability, he asks her to stay, and that request changes everything. Vivian hugs him with trembling hands, realizing that she is his only anchor this night. In her arms, full of despair and tenderness, the girl decides to stay, despite her own helplessness. The memory of another heroine flashes in her mind, suggesting the only and most awkward way out. The realization of her inappropriateness in this role makes her heart clench with uncertainty. Despite everything, she stays close, and this simple closeness becomes his salvation. The morning light mercilessly bursts into her sleep, pulling her out of the embrace of a long, restless night. The boy's gentle voice envelops her, offering a few more moments of fragile, deceptive peace. An icy shock of insight hits her as she realizes the gravity of her situation. His half-naked appearance finally destroys the remnants of her composure, igniting a treacherous blush on her cheeks. The fragments of last night come together to form a single picture, and her confusion is drowned out by his intense, searching gaze. The young man's sudden movement throws her onto the bed, and the world narrows to his mocking whisper. Her desperate attempt to clarify the situation is drowned out by his playful closeness, erasing all boundaries. The guy's meaningful answer blows her mind, leaving her alone with her worst guesses. The butler's sudden appearance rudely disrupts the intimate moment, bringing them back to harsh reality. Behind a mask of cold calm, Aslan hides his irritation at being caught at the most inopportune moment. News of messengers from her former home hits the girl, threatening to take her away from this fragile refuge. An icy rage distorts the hero's features at the thought that someone dares to take away what he already considers his own. The mention of her half-sister is a blow to Vivian's gut, because she knows who is behind it. The ghost of the main character, Iris, bursts into their story, bringing with her a threat to everything that was between them. The knowledge that her main enemy is already here freezes the blood in her veins, foreshadowing the inevitable storm. Aslan ruthlessly decides the fate of the messengers, asserting his power over her past. His icy promise to kill the intruders proves that he will stop at nothing. The girl's sharp cry interrupts his deadly command, bringing an unexpected turn to the situation. Behind the heroine's angelic smile lies a steely determination to meet the enemy face to face. She decides to put an end to this story herself, turning her escape into a deliberate attack. His condescending tenderness only strengthens her in the cunning plan that has just been born in her head. Her timid request to go with her is actually a bold move to demonstrate to everyone their unbreakable union. His piercing gaze reveals silent agreement, as he understands her game and is ready to participate in it. The horror on the faces of the envoys becomes their silent response to the sudden appearance of the second prince. The appearance of a couple radiating an aura of power and unity instantly turns the daring messengers into trembling servants. Aslan's decision to go with her is not a courtesy, but a show of force that makes the servants' blood run cold. His icy ultimatum leaves them no choice, as their severed heads are at stake. In the silence of the carriage, a fragile sense of guilt makes Vivian worry about his well-being. Behind his calmness lies a predatory interest, because he himself wanted to see the lair of her enemies. The girl's slight smile is a mask behind which lies intense calculation and hope for success. A scene from a novel pops into her mind, where the fates of the main characters are about to become tragically intertwined. Her desperate plan for survival requires her to remain calm, as she must stay by his side until the very end. She understands that her only salvation will be manipulation, switching Iris's attention to another. The original's recollection of his stepsister's kindness seems like a cruel mockery of her predetermined death. Knowing about his curse cost her her life in the past, and now this secret is once again becoming a deadly game. Iris's naivety was her main weapon in the past, which she used to skillfully manipulate Aslan. A cruel order from a young man from the past reveals that her salvation was bought at the price of her silence. The memory of betrayal ignites in Vivian a cold rage and determination to carry out her plan to the end. His tender interest breaks her out of her dark thoughts, returning her to the present, full of dangerous intimacy. Behind the luxurious facade of the Duchy of Eleanor lies a nest of intrigue, to which the heroine returns no longer a victim. The tense silence at the dinner table speaks volumes about the oppressive atmosphere in her former home. Iris's angelic smile is just a facade, behind which lies cold calculation and hidden resentment. Her carefully played doubt is the first move in the game of winning her father's favor. The Duke's false kindness only emphasizes his complete indifference to the fate of one daughter and blind adoration of the other. Her words about her origins are a thinly veiled manipulation that hits her father's sense of guilt. The father mercilessly brands Vivian's past, pouring poison into the ears of his beloved daughter. Behind his words of love and regret lies only the cowardice that prevented him from fighting for her. The Duke tries to assuage his guilt by showering Iris with the love he was never able to give her mother. Behind her happy smile hides a cold premonition, because something is wrong in this idyll. The image of her savior flashes through Iris's mind, and the memory brings her a fleeting sense of relief. The image of the kind savior does not leave her, causing a mixture of gratitude and anxiety in Iris's soul. The sudden news of her sister's arrival takes Iris by surprise, knocking the ground out from under her feet. Panic grips her as Vivian's sudden appearance threatens to destroy her carefully constructed world. The Duke continues his poisonous game, driving into his daughter's head hatred for her sister and her late mother. Her father's ominous warning should finally convince Iris that her half-sister is a mortal threat. The young heroine desperately clings to faith in her sister, refusing to believe the rumors. The father, hiding his true motives, praises her kind heart, preparing her for marriage with the prince. His words stun the girl, because she had no idea about her predetermined fate. There is a cold calculation in my father's eyes. He is ready to do anything for the sake of his ambitions. The terrible truth falls upon her, because this prince is her sister Vivian's fiancé. Her father's cruel shout cuts off any attempt to object, locking her in a cage of despair. Lady Vivian's sudden appearance is met with icy indifference from the head of the family. Following her, Prince Aslan himself enters, whose appearance heats up the situation to the limit. The father's face is distorted with anger. He cannot believe that the prince came for Vivian. His world is crumbling, and his rage is boiling over as all his plans have gone to waste. The father's anger gives way to cunning calculation, because the situation turned out to his advantage. With a false smile, he leads his daughter away to meet the guests, hiding his insidious plan. The ceremonial meeting was filled with tension and unspoken reproaches. Vivian revels in her power and position, challenging the entire house. The couple in love watches the fuss with mockery, enjoying the effect produced. The news that Iris is with another man takes the prince by surprise and causes irritation. Aslan's face darkens with anger. He takes this as a personal insult. The frightened servant mumbles apologies, feeling the prince's chilling aura. The appearance of the shining Iris becomes a ray of light in the thickening darkness of intrigue. The main character runs into her sister, and the air thickens with anticipation of drama. Vivian feigns surprise, pretending not to recognize her savior. A fleeting image of the hooded girl who once came to the rescue comes to mind. A flash of belated realization gives way to feigned joy at an unexpected meeting. The father, with cold calculation, formally introduces Iris, beginning his risky game. Vivian immediately steals the show by boasting about her companion and his noble deed. The sister's unexpected address shocks Iris, because it sounds so alien and false. A fit of childish jealousy makes Vivian demand undivided attention. Iris's gentle irony infuriates her sister, revealing her true nature. The father's patience snaps, and he unleashes his righteous anger on his runaway daughter. He painfully reveals the secret that he had to beg the prince to break off their engagement. Vivian can't believe what she's hearing. The harsh reality is destroying her cherished dreams. Her father delivers a merciless sentence, forever crossing out her future as a Grand Duchess. A chilling guess flashes through her mind that behind all this lies the betrayal of her family. Meanwhile, the Duke has his own cold-blooded plan, in which the broken engagement is just a pawn in the game. His only concern is time, because a premature break could ruin his well-thought-out strategy. He needs to win Iris's trust before the old bonds are finally broken. Vivian panics, because without an engagement, Aslan is no longer obligated to fulfill their secret agreement. An uncontrollable rage flares up inside the young man, his eyes glowing with suppressed anger. The girl tries to calm him down, not realizing that it was the prince who was humiliated, not her. Aslan remains icy and impenetrable, his silence more eloquent than any threat. Father unleashes his wrath on Vivian, but is met with a wall of her caustic defiance. Iris tries to smooth things over, but her father coldly cuts her off, assuring her that everything is under control. The head of the family begins his game by hypocritically apologizing to the prince for the scandal he caused. Suddenly, he proposes Iris as his new bride, throwing the stunned girl into the center of intrigue. By praising Iris's submissiveness, he presents her as the ideal replacement, while humiliating his second daughter. The father smugly seeks approval, presenting Iris and the prince to everyone as the perfect couple. The prince's icy word, thrown out with a grin, destroys all the solemnity of the moment. His contemptuous tone shocks everyone, causing Vivian to cry out his name in despair. Aslan directly accuses them of trying to get rid of Vivian, revealing his true intentions. With cold fury in his gaze, the hero repeats that he finds it their pathetic intrigues that are funny. The truth, voiced by the prince, drives the head of the family into a corner, tearing off his mask of hypocrisy. Iris's nobility does not allow her to compromise her conscience and steal her sister's happiness. The father uses his authority, not believing that his daughter would dare to go against his iron will. The heroine's desperate cry becomes a hymn to her defiance in the face of cruel tyranny. Rage clouds the father's eyes. He sees in his daughter only the thing that has ruined his great plans. The tyrant's hand is already raised to strike, but a frail figure stands in the way of his blind wrath. Vivian unexpectedly defends her sister, showing for the first time that their bond is not yet broken. She calmly takes matters into her own hands. Speaking of the general shock and confusion, Vivian's request for time sounds like an ultimatum, changing the balance of power in this drama. She subtly reminds her father that her word to the prince is more important than his selfish ambitions. Vivian announces her decision to stay, using her ill health as an excuse to make a new move. A cold calculation flashed through her thoughts, because the slap was only part of a treacherous performance. This whole theater was played out with only one goal: to gain the trust of his naive sister. The genuine sympathy in Iris's eyes confirms that the cunning trap worked flawlessly. The girl surrounds her sister with care, unaware that her kindness is being shamelessly manipulated. The prince watches this scene in silence, his piercing gaze not missing a single false note. Iris's modest room becomes a new stage for unfolding drama and secret intrigue. Vivian's snide remark about the cramped room is a veiled jab at Aslan. The prince's unexpected decision to stay with them in the same room ruins all the cunning schemer's plans. Aslan strikes back by mentioning her illness and exile out loud, exposing the sisters. Vague memories shroud Vivian, hiding from her the frightening truth about herself. The forgotten past lies like a dead weight, leaving only emptiness in place of key events. But the body remembers everything, and sword skills have become an integral and deadly part of it. Aslan persistently reminds her of the promise he made, not allowing her to forget their secret agreement. His words that she will become his wife sound like an unbreakable vow and a destiny. The prince begs the girl not to risk herself, because he promised to be her reliable shield. Despite his words, Vivian's instincts push her forward, towards danger and destiny. Her recklessness makes the young man smile warmly, because he accepts her as she is. The young man's tender request to take care of himself sounds like a plea coming from the heart. The girl is tormented by doubts, because his care goes far beyond the scope of their cold contract. A forgotten memory, full of childhood melancholy and inexplicable tenderness, comes to life in her soul. The prince's mysterious words about urgent matters make the girl's heart beat with anxiety. Left alone, Vivian feels a familiar premonition that always brought trouble. Aslan's icy gaze pins the heroine's father to the spot, leaving him no escape. The Duke's pathetic apologies are shattered by the young man's wall of cold indifference. With a predatory smile, the prince returns to the topic of marriage with Iris, trapping his interlocutor. The father's attempt to change the subject and lead the guest away fails, running into the young man's steely will. Aslan himself chooses the place for the conversation, taking the initiative completely into his own hands. His shadow falls ominously on the floor, foreshadowing a very unpleasant and harsh conversation for the Duke. Meanwhile, discovery under the pillow awakens in the heroine a vague premonition of mystery. An old book opens its pages, beginning to tell the story of a long-forgotten family tragedy. The diary enters its pages, beginning to tell the story of a long-forgotten family tragedy. The diary entry brings back memories of the sudden and terrible death of a loved one. Before her eyes appears a picture of complete orphanhood, when two children are left alone against the whole world. A shocking realization hits Vivian. This is her own childhood diary. The final entry ends on an ominous note, foreshadowing the onset of her serious illness. A heavy sigh escapes her lips, because the diary reminded her of the powerless struggle against her father's oppression. A sudden knock on the window pierces the silence of the room, causing the girl to shudder with fear. She tries to calm herself down, but the uneasy feeling of uncertainty grows with every second. Childish curiosity prevails over fear, and the heroine decides to look behind the curtain. Behind the curtain, she is met by an ominous dark silhouette that makes her blood run cold. The light illuminates the stranger, and fear turns to shock at the sight of a young man. A flash of recognition pierces her consciousness, for before her stands her long-lost brother. She can't believe her eyes, because he should be far away at the academy. The warm smile of Alex, her brother, brings back a long-forgotten feeling of security into her world. The fear she experienced gives way to relief, but she still reproaches him for such a dangerous visit. He explains that the secret route was the only way to avoid meeting his father. Her brother's keen gaze notices her anxiety. He feels that her sister is hiding something. She tries to laugh it off, admiring his dexterity in avoiding a difficult conversation. But he interrupts her, asking a direct and painful question about her terrible illness. His words are full of pain, because he learned about his sister's suicide note from strangers. Memory takes her back to the past, where despair was so great that she even forgot about her brother. Alex reveals to her the secret that he left only to return strong and protect her. The thought of losing her takes away all meaning from his goal, turning all his sacrifices to dust. In a fit of despair, the young man is ready to give up everything, just so as not to leave his sister alone. He firmly believes that his place is by her side, even if it costs him his future. The girl reproaches him for his recklessness, because his sudden departure could ruin everything. A thought dawns on him, because she involuntarily revealed that someone else had appeared in her life. Vivian tries to allay his concerns, assuring him that she is fine and healthy. But his piercing gaze sees the truth, and he stops her, not believing this lie. His gaze catches the mark on her cheek, and he struggles to contain the anger that is bursting out. She speaks with bitterness about the public humiliation that her own father inflicted on her. Contempt for his father shines through in every word he says, because he considers him a pathetic and insignificant coward. The girl defiantly admits that she intentionally exposed herself to attack, shocking her brother with her courage. Anxiety grows in his soul. He feels that there is something more hidden behind this scandal. She tries to calm him down, confident that Prince Aslan will not agree to break off the engagement. Her words seem strange to him, because he knows that the prince openly expressed his dislike for her. Behind this intrigue lies the shadow of a powerful empress who forced this bride on the prince. The ruthless ruler will never allow a break, because the fate of her son is at stake. Alex finally realizes that the Grand Duke is now on her side, and this gives them both hope. Through tears, she confirms that now she is haunted only by evil fate, and not by a real threat. The brother vows to protect her from any offenders, even if it turns out to be the Grand Duke himself. His eyes light up with mischief, and he offers her a daring escape plan as the first step. As a joke, he paints a picture of himself walking down the aisle with the prince to save her from marriage. His sister's ringing laughter becomes the best reward for him, even if he pretends to be offended. Her laughter fades, leaving a bitter aftertaste, because she forgot when she laughed so sincerely. The lightness of the moment disappears when he admits that his visit was meant to be fleeting. But now there is a steely determination in his gaze, because he will not leave without talking to his father. Anxiety grips the girl, but his evasive answer only increases her fear of the coming storm. Unexpected news from the maid puts their plan on hold, because the father is not alone now. The father's strange night walk with the prince causes alarming bewilderment in the brother and sister. The prince coldly reveals the duke's true intentions, asking directly about Vivian's future fate. The father, with frightening ease, condemns his own daughter to marriage with an old man, revealing all his ruthlessness. Contempt flashes in Aslan's gaze, for he knows full well the dark reputation of this suitor. The duke boastfully hides behind the will of the emperor himself, trying to justify his vile deal. In his sick imagination, Vivian is just a bargaining chip that will bring him the long-awaited benefit. An icy rage grips the prince, because he knows about the terrible and mysterious fate of the Marquise's previous wives. Aslan masterfully changes the tone, offering a frank conversation, as if driving a cunning animal into a cage. He prepares to deliver his final blow, promising to reveal the secret, and there is a hidden threat in his voice. Cold sweat breaks out on the father's forehead. He feels the death noose around his neck slowly tightening. An invisible grip squeezes the duke's throat, and primal horror distorts his face. Choking with pain, he babbles his last question, not realizing that his fate has already been decided. The prince's devilish grin and eyes burning with hellish fire reveal his true demonic nature. Thrown to the ground, the father of the family helplessly calls for help, realizing that he is faced with evil itself. His pitiful pleas only evoke cold contempt from Aslan, for the game has only just begun. Bending over his victim, the demon enjoys her fear, which for him is sweeter than rose petals. The flashback takes us back to the past, where the prince received the report that marked the beginning of his ruthless investigation. The lines of the report reveal a terrible secret: the poisoning of the previous duchess, the mother of Vivian and Alex. The ghostly images of the parents remind us of the fragile health of their only daughter, the heiress of the family. The old duke, obsessed with power, was looking for a successor willing to take his place and inherit everything. The Duke's predecessor, finding himself in a desperate situation, was forced to accept into the family a son-in-law from a simple branch. The Duchess's death from poisoning was only the beginning of a nightmare that plunged the family into an abyss of cruelty. The constant violence and abuse at the hands of the current Duke had broken her spirit. The creation of negative public opinion and slander became his main weapon in the struggle for power. As a result, he seized the inheritance, disregarding all moral norms and human laws. From the moment he saw the report, his demonic essence thirsted for revenge. He realized that all of Vivian's actions were just a desperate attempt to save this engagement. Prince Aslan, trapped by circumstances, gives a chance to correct the past. He orders to go immediately to the Emperor and beg him to break off the engagement, hoping for a miracle. With these words, he disappears, leaving behind only a shadow of his demonic presence. He issues a final warning, threatening to turn the nightmare into a cruel reality. The shocked Duke realizes that he has been given life, but his fate now hangs in the balance. The prince continues to play with his mind, explaining that all the horror he experienced was just an illusion. But behind this game lies a chilling truth, for the illusion only confirmed his demonic nature. Aslan asks with venomous mockery about the benefit the Duke seeks in the fate of the unfortunate Vivian. Looking at the defeated enemy, the young man understands how deeply this girl has penetrated his heart. She became a part of him, from his first breath to the last drop of blood in his veins. His gaze burns with fire, because now his entire being belongs entirely to Vivian. The morning brings with it a deceptive calm, and the heroine basks in bed, not wanting to wake up. The strange warmth nearby makes her freeze, because she realizes that she was not alone at night. Morning light floods the room, revealing the loving couple in each other's arms. The shocked heroine cannot believe her eyes when she finds the prince in her bed. He gently pulls her towards him, complaining about the cramped bed just to be closer. His touch awakens in her a strange feeling of déjà vu, as if it had happened before. Anxiety pierces her heart when she realizes that his night visit is connected with her father. A sudden knock on the door rudely disrupts their private moment, bringing them back to harsh reality. Instead of the maid, her beaming brother appears on the threshold, turning the tension into a funny scene. The meeting between the two main men in her life is filled with hidden tension and polite apologies. Aslan puts the young man in his place with icy calm, subtly hinting at his closeness with Vivian. Alex accepts the challenge with a smile, formally introducing himself as the brother of the girl whose heart they are fighting for. A slight irritation can be seen in Aslan's gaze, because his brother's sudden appearance ruins all his plans. Alex responds with an icy grin, not believing the sincerity of this newly minted protector of his sister. Their handshake becomes a battlefield, where the girl is a silent prize for the winner. The prince strikes back, announcing his decision to stay, as Vivian has business with him. He demonstratively hugs the girl, reminding everyone of her sister, and this gesture is full of possessiveness. The news that her father went to the palace alone plunges the heroine into real shock. Aslan coolly announces that he has sent the Duke to ask for an annulment of the engagement, and her world collapses. She looks at him with silent reproach, realizing that he has mercilessly used her in his game. He remembers the moment when searching for the escaped Vivian helped him curb his curse. Now he understands that it was she who became the impetus that allowed him to control the beast inside. In his thoughts, there is a recognition that it was she who became the very impetus that changed his destiny. Vivian is surprised by her father's sudden submission. Unaware of the storm that had raged during the night, Alex resolutely takes care of his sister into his own hands, silently challenging the prince himself. The girl's slight confusion momentarily diffuses the situation, but rivalry is in the air. The sumptuous breakfast conceals the true reason for the prince's delay, a sharp deterioration in her health. The emperor's visit after her treatment should have brought peace, but it was only the calm before the storm. Anxiety about the future does not leave her for a second, poisoning even this short moment of respite. Memory throws up a painful fragment of the past, a humiliating meeting with a ruthless empress. The gaps in her memories torment her, because she feels like a pawn in someone else's incomprehensible game. The sister begs her to remember everything, because only then will they have a chance to break out of this vicious circle. Tired of endless worries, the heroine decides to cast aside her fears and enjoy the moment. Meanwhile, the prince coldly gives his faithful assistant a secret order. A mysterious order forces the servant to act immediately, while everyone is distracted by breakfast. Her caring brother persuades Vivian to take a rest, but her soul longs for a break from oppressive thoughts. She feels like she is in a cage, and memories of the cruel empress haunt her. Aslan throws down the gauntlet, slyly mentioning his opponent's fencing talents. A direct challenge to a duel lights a fire in Alex's eyes, and he accepts it with honor. The prince dedicates this duel only to her, turning the duel into a real battle for her heart. Two rivals meet in the garden, and the ringing silence explodes with a furious clash of steel. The girl listens to the music of the blades, mesmerized, finding long-awaited oblivion in this dangerous dance. The slight annoyance of not being able to join the battle is replaced by delight at the spectacle. A flash of magic turns the duel into a real battle, causing her heart to freeze with fear. The prince assesses his opponent with a predatory smile, acknowledging his strength, but not doubting his own. Alex parries the compliment with pride, as his skill is the result of long and hard training. Iris watches Vivian's brother with admiration, amazed by his incredible strength and agility. At this moment, her heart belongs entirely to him, and the powerful prince remains only a shadow. The girl sadly admits to her sister her clumsiness, envying her fighting talents. Vivian encourages her, assuring her that magic and books can become her main weapons in this world. A random word from a book becomes the key that unlocks the rusty lock of her memory. The fragments of memories come together to form a coherent picture, and she finally remembers the place of her humiliation. Memory helpfully throws her a place for a future tragedy, where books will become a murder weapon. The Empress used this unfortunate incident to falsely accuse and humiliate the main character. Realization hits Vivian, because now she knows the name of the place where death awaits her, the Imperial Library. A desperate hope flares up in her heart, because if she doesn't go there, she might deceive fate itself. But the bitter truth is that fate is not pursuing the main character, but her, and there is no escape from it. Panic grips her mind, because knowing the future doesn't provide an answer to the main question, what to do now. The alarming cry of two men who have finished the duel breaks her from the captivity of dark thoughts. Concerned about her condition, they come to her room, unaware of the storm raging in her soul. The prince shares his suspicions, because the doctor's vague words do not inspire any confidence in him. The brother completely agrees with him, understanding that in such conditions, any treatment will be useless. He remembers with bitterness how his departure only caused her pain instead of being a salvation. Tears well up in his eyes as he feels guilty for not being able to protect her. The prince looks at her tenderly, realizing that her stupid habit of taking care of everyone has captivated him. At first, he fell in love with her strength and courage, with this daring warrior who knew no fear. Now he is ready to do anything to speed up her recovery, because he has a special gift for her. The night brings her no peace, but only pain and suffering, forcing her to rush about in a feverish delirium. She imagines with horror what it would be like to slowly fade away in complete solitude, far from loved ones. How ironic that, having prepared herself for death, she now clings so desperately to the fleeting life. A thought flashes through her mind. All her troubles happened when she tried to escape from fate. Hope lights up her face, because if fate cannot be avoided, then it can be turned into one's greatest opportunity. Exhausted but not broken, she gathers her last strength for the decisive move. Her silent request to the prince is not a plea, but a vow sealed with faith and desperate hope. A steely glint lights up in her eyes as she prepares to face her destiny. This simple message, delivered by a maid, becomes an anchor for him in a raging sea of anxiety. His heart clenches with worry. He can't tell if she's trying to reassure him or herself. Her words make him forget everything for a moment, taking him back to memories of her strength. In his memory, she appears as an invincible warrior, whose spirit cannot be broken by any adversity. The golden rays of a new day bring with them not only dawn, but also a premonition of change. Her miraculous healing illuminates everyone with the light of hope, dispelling the darkness of despair and fear. Her sister's tears and the news of her brother's grief only emphasize how dear she is to everyone who loves her. His brother's emotional breakdown forces him to cover Iris's mouth to keep his emotions from showing. The prince, with icy calm, reproaches him for being overly dramatic, hiding his own anxiety. Vivian apologizes to her brother with a tender smile, Feeling guilty for his suffering, Alex's tight embrace speaks louder than any words, betraying the horror he had been through. The touching scene of reunion leaves Iris touched, and the prince with a twinge of jealousy. Aslan interrupts them decisively, demanding to speak with his bride alone, and his voice does not tolerate objections. Left alone, they freeze in a tense silence that deepens with every second. His unexpected request to close her eyes makes her heart beat in anticipation of something important. She obeys, and in this silence, a fragile trust is born between two wounded souls. He waits with bated breath for her reaction to the gift, hoping that this modest gesture will break the ice. The luxurious necklace on her neck becomes an unexpected symbol of his budding feelings. She realizes that his apparent kindness is a deviation from the plot that gives her hope. Doubt begins to arise in her heart, because this cruel tyrant from the book turns out to be completely different. Her sincere gratitude and radiant smile disarm him, penetrating his icy armor. Embarrassed and confused, he can't hide his blush, because she always tests his strength. His reaction frightens her. She is afraid that with a careless word, she has destroyed this fragile moment. In a panic, she tries to fix everything, explaining that she is grateful to him not only for the expensive gift. After all, it was he who gave her the priceless opportunity to reunite with her family and feel protected. His heart aches with tenderness because he understands how lonely she was all this time. Her happy laughter becomes his greatest reward, and he gently touches her cheek, erasing all his past fears. Her words were sincere because she spoke from the heart, trying to reach out to him. She thinks with bitterness about the fate of the real Vivian, who never knew simple human happiness. By becoming her, she got the chance to rewrite history and give this tormented soul a worthy ending. By burning an old diary in the fireplace, she hopes that it will be a small consolation for the one whose life she is living. Tongues of flame devour the pages of the past, taking with them pain, suffering, and unfulfilled dreams. Her brother approaches her, and there is a determination in his eyes that is both frightening and hopeful at the same time. His unexpected offer to run away together sounds like the only way out of this vicious circle. She understands that this is not a sudden impulse, but a long-awaited decision that will change their lives forever. He assures her that his academy has everything necessary to find a cure for her fatal illness. For him, neither titles nor wealth are important, because the only thing that matters is her life. With a heavy heart, she gives up on running away, choosing to stay and fight for her future. She reveals to him the secret that the prince himself vowed to find a cure for her fatal illness. Doubt distorts the brother's face, because he cannot believe in the sincerity of this cruel tyrant. Her words are full of determination, because she wants to protect her mother's legacy, which is rightfully theirs. She begs him to return to his studies so that he can become strong and take his rightful place as the head of the family. His heart melts from her care, and he promises to always be there to protect her from any troubles. The time spent together flies by, and now the carriage carries her and the prince to the palace. Remaining at the estate, Iris and Alex make their plans, preparing for the coming changes. A sudden realization hits Vivian, because in the chaos, she had completely forgotten about her father's return. She panics at the thought of his anger, but Aslan confidently promises that this will not happen. His insight shocks her, because he knows even her most secret thoughts about the coming disasters. She consoles herself with the thought that her brother will take care of everything while she fights on her battlefield. Anger flares in the Emperor's memory, because his son dared to go against him using forbidden power. A terrible guess pierces Vivian when she realizes that they want to marry her to the old Marquise. The prince confirms that this is his father's order, and her legs give way with the realization of her powerlessness. But there is no fear in his eyes, because he has already launched his plan, which will soon destroy their insidious enemy. She cannot believe that a distinguished hero of the state could be involved in dark deeds. Despite her confusion, she decides to trust him completely, because she has no other choice. His first-class intelligence once again proves that he is not someone to be underestimated. Extending her hand to him, she asks him to believe in her as infinitely as she believes in him. Her hand in his is a silent promise to save the life of the one he hates so much. Arriving at the palace, she is convinced that Aslan's words were true, and the marriage with the Marquis is dissolved. The news of the impending execution of the former hero makes her heart clench with a complex mixture of emotions. The Emperor summons her, and she, gathering all her will into a fist, appears before the formidable ruler. The imperious order to leave the hall leaves her alone with anxiety for the fate of her protector. She sees the displeasure on the emperor's face and wonders with horror what they will talk about in private. Memory brings to her the image of little Aslan, who was subjected to cruel treatment from childhood. Her heart aches with pain, because she cannot leave him alone to be torn apart by this tyrant. She pulls herself together, realizing that now is not the time for sentimentality, because her life is at stake. Her main goal is to prove her innocence in the murder that is about to be pinned on her. She realizes that her only chance of salvation is to save the one she is supposed to hate. The emperor's wrath falls upon his son, who dared to go against his will and ruin his plans. Aslan, with icy calm, reminds his father of his own fears, driving the tyrant into a corner. He makes it clear with a grin that the Marquise's resignation was a foregone conclusion, and his role in it was minimal. The emperor realizes that he has given his son freedom for too long, and now this freedom has turned against him. A flash of blind rage forces the father to raise his hand against his own son, punishing him for his disobedience. His inhuman resilience only fuels the emperor's hatred, who sees him not as a son, but as a monster. Even while bleeding, Aslan thanks for the mercy, and in this gratitude there is an undisguised mockery. The emperor's cruelty knows no bounds, and he is ready to continue the torture in order to break the will of his rebellious son. But behind all this anger lies fear, because the main question that torments him is what the Duke managed to tell. Overcome with fear, the Duke begs on his knees to call off the engagement, revealing his secret conspiracy. In despair, he confesses that he was blackmailed by the demon Astaroth himself, trying to save his miserable life. The emperor looks at his beaten son with icy contempt, accusing him of using forbidden power. Blind rage clouds his eyes. He cannot understand why this engagement is so important to his son. Aslan bitterly realizes that his father and the Duke are of the same ilk, and that it is impossible to reach him. He reveals his trump card, explaining that he saw true and hidden potential in Vivian. The emperor mockingly rejects his words, because he sees no strength in the sick and weak girl. But the prince deals a crushing blow, declaring that she is the one who can suppress his demonic curse. There is confidence in his eyes, because he believes that she will be the key that will break this vicious circle. The emperor's cold calculation becomes clear. In order to strengthen his power, he needed to weaken the Duke's family. The emperor bitterly realizes that his son learned of this secret only when she was on the brink of death. Aslan, with unwavering determination, vows to save her no matter the cost. Defying fate itself, he begs his father to reverse his decision, because now her life is the only thing that matters. At this time, Vivian stands at the library doors, realizing that the decisive battle awaits her behind them. She decides to stage a chance meeting so that her appearance does not arouse unnecessary suspicion. The idea of simply banning entry seems too suspicious and risky to her. According to the book, a tragedy will happen in the magic book section, and she has no choice but to go there. The tension headache was almost unbearable, as the novel had given no clue as to how to avoid this trap. Suddenly, she hears a familiar voice that breaks her out of her dark thoughts and makes her turn around. This voice belongs to the one who will become her executioner, and the girl's heart stops in anticipation of inevitable disaster. The icy majesty of the Empress fills the hall, and her appearance becomes a harbinger of an imminent storm. Gathering all her willpower, Vivian politely greets the woman who holds her fate in her hands. The Empress's cold gaze notes her sickly appearance, and in this anxiety, she sees her greatest vulnerability. She is tormented by vague doubts, because the Crown Prince's belated interest in this girl seems suspicious to her. With false politeness, she allows her to enter the library, playing with her like a cat with a mouse. The cryptic warning about magic books sounds like a veiled threat that makes your blood run cold. Vivian is overcome with internal panic because she cannot reveal that she knows this scenario from the novel. She knows the true cause of the tragedy, but without proof of her knowledge, it is just useless baggage. In desperation, she comes up with an excuse, trying to warn of danger without revealing her secret. But her lie is shattered by the words of the librarian, who drives her into a corner, depriving her of her last chance of salvation. Her bold hint about a secret trap only elicits a condescending grin from the librarian. The Empress cuts her off with cold indifference, making it clear that her concern is misplaced. Left alone, Vivian can hardly catch her breath, because confronting this woman is a real test. She examines the bookcases, but finds no signs that they are about to collapse. Meeting the maid becomes her salvation, because now she has an excuse to stay here. She pretends to be looking for the book mentioned by the Empress, hoping to buy herself some time. An unexpected offer of help from a maid gives her a fragile hope of salvation. A sudden jolt of electricity pierces her body, and she realizes that the invisible trap has already begun to operate. She tries to understand what it was. A simple coincidence, or an ominous sign of residual magic. The maid, with that very book in her hands, interrupts her thoughts, and this moment becomes fatal. She tries to blame it on static electricity, but her body is shaking with foreboding. A flash of memory illuminates her mind, because something similar has happened to her before. Her memory takes her to the market, where she accidentally touched an explosive magic stone. This thing is so dangerous that even a simple touch can cause a severe burn. At the time, she didn't pay any attention to it, but now she understands that her life was on the line. A terrible guess pierces her mind, because she understands that this is the stone hidden in the book. She is overcome with panic, because it is simply impossible to bring such a dangerous thing into the Imperial Library. The Empress listens with icy calm to the servant who points to the ill-fated shelf. Realizing that the trap is about to snap shut, Vivian rushes towards it in desperation, trying to prevent tragedy. Her desperate cry is drowned out by the silence, because she understands that it is too late to change anything. A flash of magic illuminates the ceiling, and the Empress realizes with horror that her plan has gotten out of control. The instinct of self-sacrifice pushes Vivian forward, and she covers with her body the one who wanted her dead. Screams of horror fill the library, as something no one could have foreseen happens before their eyes. In the arms of the rescued Empress, she tries to understand how she managed to change the predetermined ending. Instead of a bookcase, only a stream of dust and old books fell upon them, causing no harm. The frightened servants surround them, not knowing how to react to this strange and frightening incident. A mysterious glow emanating from her skirt attracts the maid's attention, adding even more mystery to the scene. She herself doesn't understand what's happening, because there's nothing in her pockets that could glow like that. A sudden discovery leaves her in shock. She finds herself holding that very explosive magic stone in her hands. The appearance of the guards puts a bold end to this story, because now she will have to answer for something she did not do. A cold glint flashes in the Empress's eyes, because she understands that this incident is not a simple accident. The librarian apologizes with feigned zeal for his insolence, trying to divert suspicion from himself. The guards grab the terrified maid, who becomes the scapegoat in this cruel game. All eyes are on the unfortunate girl, and Vivian realizes that her plan has worked. She breathes a sigh of relief, because now she can't be accused of something she didn't do. But the maid's strange behavior makes her suspicious, because she doesn't even try to escape. This situation painfully reminds her of a scene from a novel where the main character was also set up. The Empress's merciless order to send her maid to the torture chamber makes her blood run cold. Gathering all her courage, Vivian decides to intervene, because she cannot allow an innocent soul to perish. She reveals her trump card, pointing out that the maid could not have found the book without knowing the magical language. She understands that there is no turning back, and she will have to play her most risky game. With impeccable logic, she explains that the maid could not find the book because she did not know the language. A note with a title written in simple magical language becomes her main trump card. She questions the maid's guilt, as she would not be able to handle such a powerful artifact. The librarian tries to object, but his words only betray his own excitement and involvement. The strange behavior of the maid, who did not try to escape, becomes further evidence against the real criminal. Vivian's gaze is fixed on the librarian, and with icy calm, she understands that he is the puppeteer. She knows that only a person who understands magic could be in charge of this section of the library. By pointing this out, she will not only expose his crime, but will also forever incur the wrath of powerful enemies. She decides to take a desperate step, using the fragments of the magic stone to direct its power to the true culprit. She suggests using the stone's residual magic to find the real culprit and uncover the conspiracy. The Empress looks at her with cold curiosity, allowing her to carry out her risky plan to the end. Vivian explains that the stone will react to anyone who touches it except its true owner. Thus, the lack of reaction will become the main evidence of the guilt of the one who started this deadly game. The librarian smiles and admires her intelligence, but warns that they have too little time. She understands that the criminal was confident of his impunity and did not bother to collect evidence. She turns to the librarian with an icy smile, her voice filled with an undisguised challenge. He tries to save face, pretending not to understand her hints, but his eyes betray fear. Suddenly, she places the stone in his hand, and his cry of horror becomes a harbinger of the inevitable revelation. A bright flash of magic illuminates his hand, and the stone's lack of reaction becomes irrefutable proof of his guilt. With a beaming smile, she announces her confidence, and at that moment, she is the queen of the ball. The shocked servants cannot believe their eyes, because the lack of reaction of the stone is direct proof. The librarian is surprised to note her knowledge of magic. Unaware that her main teacher is life itself, she modestly attributes all her knowledge to the prince, because it was he who taught her the most important thing, to believe in herself. The empress watches her with cold curiosity, realizing that this girl is not who she seems. Feigned concern for the empress's health is her subtle move in this complex game of chess. The displeased expression on the ruler's face reveals her true feelings, as her plan has failed miserably. She realizes that she has gone too far in daring to challenge the most powerful woman in the empire. A slight wound on her cheek becomes a reminder that in the palace, even the walls have ears. The empress's unexpected question takes her by surprise, and she realizes that her loneliness has not gone unnoticed. The girl cleverly avoids answering, using her illness as a shield from the empress's prying eyes. In the icy eyes of the ruler, only cold calculation can be read, because for her this girl is just a temporary tool. Her words about surveillance sound like a veiled threat, tightening the noose of control around the heroine's neck. Vivian realizes with alarm that this empress is not at all the one she read about in the book. The heavy look from over her shoulder becomes a silent reminder for her that from now on, her every step is under surveillance. She feels like a puppet in the hands of two powerful players, caught between the prince and his mother. Her worst suspicions are confirmed, and an icy horror grips her, because she was not imagining it. Aslan's keen sense of smell detects the faint scent of blood in the air, and his instincts are heightened. The sudden appearance of another prince, Johannes, escalates the situation, as he also sensed blood. Two rival brothers come face to face, and the air is thick with anticipation of an inevitable showdown. The smell of blood emanating from his brother causes Johannes only feigned concern and hidden glee. He smirks and accuses Aslan of abusing the curse, trying to make him look like a monster in the eyes of others. His words are full of venom, because he sees his brother only as a threat that disgraces the honor of the imperial family. Aslan parries his attacks with contempt, reminding him that he himself is not without sin and likes to poke his nose into other people's business. The appearance of the empress interrupts their squabble, and with icy calm she demands an explanation from Aslan. The sudden appearance of Lady Eleanor silences both princes, and all attention turns to her. Her regal posture and calm gaze captivate, making you forget about the passions that just raged. A bad feeling and Aslan's worsening condition made her come here to prevent trouble. Johannes greets her with feigned joy, hiding his surprise and annoyance at her sudden appearance. She breathes a sigh of relief, because she felt uneasy about how they parted last time. Johannes, with feigned hospitality, invites her to the palace, trying to win her over to his side. Aslan, with icy calm, thwarts his attempt, making it clear that this girl belongs to him. He explains to his brother with a grin that Vivian is too kind to refuse, even if it is a burden to her. The heroine declines the invitation with a polite smile, citing urgent matters, and her refusal is full of dignity. Johannes regretfully accepts her refusal, but promises to send an official invitation, leaving her no choice. His words about improving her relationship with Aslan take her by surprise, and she doesn't know how to react to it. A sudden question about Aslan's true appearance makes her heart freeze with fear, because he knows her main secret. She realizes with horror that he might have guessed about her knowledge of the curse, and now her life is in even greater danger. With feigned ease, he tries to dispel her suspicions, but his words sound like a veiled threat. He leaves, leaving her in complete confusion, because now she understands that she has been drawn into a deadly game between two brothers. An inner rage boils within her, because this damned Johannes is trying to ruin her life again. She bitterly realizes that for him, her fate is just a fun game, in which the stake is her life. With a nervous laugh, she tries to hide her fear by calling the crown prince a naughty boy. The memory of the pouring rain and the cold palace takes her back to the day she first saw his pain. She cannot understand how one can be so cruel to one's own son, and her heart is aching with pity. His words about being used to pain pierce her, because she understands the hell he had to go through. The bad feeling that had been tormenting her turned out to be true, and now she feels guilty. She decides to act, because now it is in her power to somehow ease his suffering. Her bold request to take off her clothes takes him by surprise, and he doesn't know how to react. With a playful smile, she offers him her help, and at that moment, she is ready to do anything to be near him. His words about pain make her heart clench, but she is determined to help him. With a sinking heart, she touches his clothes, afraid of causing him even more pain. The terrible wounds on his body speak louder than any words, and she understands how serious his condition is. She wants to call a doctor, but he stops her, assuring her that her care will be quite sufficient. His words that he doesn't need anyone but her make her heart beat faster, erasing all doubts. She understands that his wariness is not caused by mistrust, but by fear of ubiquitous spies. With tenderness, she begins to treat his wounds, and at that moment, a new intimacy is born between them. His words about showing her only his weak side are full of vulnerability and trust. He asks anxiously if she is tired of him like this, and in this question lies all his pain and loneliness. She tenderly assures him that everyone has their weaknesses, and there is no shame in accepting help. His lonely and difficult childhood painfully reminds her of her own, creating an invisible bond between them. She understands his desire to be independent, because she herself has gone through the humiliation and pain of loneliness. The sudden hug takes her by surprise, and she feels all his pain and vulnerability in that moment. Instinctively, she responds to his touch, wanting to comfort him and give him at least a drop of warmth. She knows that soon he will put on his icy mask again, and this moment of intimacy will remain just a memory. In his arms, she finds oblivion, and the whole world narrows down to this fragile moment of union of two souls. The sudden news of her father's death, found dead in the mountains, hits her like freezing rain. A quiet funeral, devoid of grief, becomes the last act in the tragic play of his life. She stands at his grave with dry eyes, but in her soul, a storm of complex and contradictory feelings rages. An inexplicable premonition of disaster overcomes her, because she understands that with the death of her father, the game is only just beginning. The sudden appointment of the title of Duke to his brother throws him off balance, as he was not at all prepared for it. Thanks to Aslan's generous help, the inheritance process goes smoothly, and Alex comes into his own. For everyone, these events seem good, but Vivian looks with anxiety to the future, full of the unknown. Despite her apparent well-being, her own situation is becoming worse and more complicated every day. Surrounded by her maids, she prepares for a new day, unaware of the surprise that awaits her ahead. An accidental touch to her chest reveals a strange white pattern that leaves her in shock. She panics and asks the maid if she sees the pattern, but she only looks at her in bewilderment. She tries to attribute everything to the paleness of the pattern, but the question of its origin haunts her. Her memory brings to mind an image from a novel where the main character had a similar pattern, but it was different. Its pattern is painfully similar to the one she saw on Aslan's chest, and this discovery changes everything. The girl is tormented by doubts, deciding on a desperate and risky step. The heroine, casting aside her fears, seeks an ally to whom she can entrust her secret. An overheard conversation outside the door takes her by surprise, ruining all her plans. She sees how the master gives some fatal order to his subordinate. The young man tries to dissuade the owner from an absolutely reckless decision. Suddenly, the girl realizes that their ominous conversation is about her own life. The sharp sound makes the guy tense up and fall silent mid-sentence. The young man looks anxiously towards the door, clearly sensing that something is wrong. The heroine freezes in panic, afraid to reveal her involuntary presence. A terrible guess about the impending mortal danger pierces her consciousness. A chilling thought pierced her, that this time he really had decided to kill her. She bitterly realizes that her past kindness has been met with mortal threat. Naive hopes for their fragile rapprochement were shattered by harsh reality. The heroine understands that in order to be saved, she will have to secretly look for another ally. The only hope for salvation is a mysterious magician named Jesus. She seeks to meet a powerful mentor who can awaken her power. The girl is confident of success because, unlike others, she knows where to look for it. Now, all she can do is wait for the perfect moment to escape from her prison. However, it turned out to be impossible to get out unnoticed because the hero was following her closely. His heavy, distrustful gaze does not bode well for their walk. His icy smile makes it clear that their solitude is not a concern, but a trap. Suddenly, Vivian realizes that fate itself has led her straight to Jesus' guild. The girl understands that she will definitely not have a second such chance to escape. Her first timid attempt to slip away is immediately shattered by his total control. Then the heroine resorts to trickery, trying to soften Aslan's heart with her feigned awkwardness. The mention of a lingerie store momentarily throws the self-confident guy off his game. Vivian celebrates her small victory, seeing that her daring ploy worked. He lets her go, but sets strict conditions, assigning his maid to supervise her. Having received precious minutes of freedom, she rushes headlong towards her goal. The guild's coveted turquoise sign confirms that its salvation is at hand. While unremarkable on the outside, the Mages Guild turned out to be a deceptively simple place on the inside. Vivian realizes that behind the humble facade of this place lies a tremendous power. The mysterious hooded young man immediately tries to send the uninvited guest away, but his words only convince the girl that she has finally found what she was looking for. She unmistakably recognizes in the stranger a great magician named Jesus. The heroine recites a secret password from an ancient prophecy so that he will listen to her. His knowing grin lets her know he's ready to join her dangerous game. Suddenly, a bright flash of magic blinds her, completely changing the reality around her. The true form of the guild leader, the powerful Jesus, appears before her. In the blink of an eye, they are transported to his secret library, stunning her imagination. Vivian, with her last hope, begs the magician to rid her of the death mark on her body. Even a great mage is shocked by the maddening and dark energy of this curse. He immediately determines that the girl has become a victim of very sinister black magic. The magic circle turns out to be a clockwork mechanism, ready to stop her heart at any moment. Jesus is surprised by her steely composure, because anyone else in her place would have been hysterical. Her calm is a desperate belief that only he can save her. The magician's confident smile gives her the first hope of salvation in a long time. It turns out she has a chance, because the deadly ritual has not yet been completed. He suggests performing a ritual of destruction, and Vivian urges him to begin it as soon as possible. But then a new problem arises. The curse will not allow anyone to interfere with his work. Jesus confronts her with a mocking choice that infuriates the girl. Putting aside her emotions, Vivian declares that she is ready to pay absolutely any price for help. However, the magician is not interested in money, and his true motives only irritate her. As payment, he demands something priceless: the pure blood of a member of the Eleanor family. The heroine defiantly asks if he is ready to encroach on her precious body for his goal. Without waiting for an answer, she seizes the initiative, not wanting to waste a second. In desperate determination, the girl, without hesitation, inflicts a deep wound on herself with a dagger. She drains the precious blood into a cup, hoping that this sacrifice will be enough. Even a seasoned magician is shocked by her incredible courage and strength of spirit. With a satisfied smile, Jesus accepts her blood payment, agreeing to the deal. The mage warns that his magic will not be able to hide the wound from the Duke's penetrating gaze. Jesus asks her to be patient, as deciphering the deadly formula will take time. The girl begins to feel dizzy due to the stress and loss of blood. She remembers that Aslan is waiting for her, and this thought makes her gather her strength. The hero's tension is so obvious that even his assistant notices his agitation. The sinister smile that appeared on Aslan's face only emphasized his internal conflict. The subordinate tries to cheer him up by reminding him of their diligent rehearsals. In a comical flashback, Dylan teaches his master a seductive dance with a rose. The young man is absolutely confident that this romantic gesture will ensure the success of the proposal. However, Aslan himself strongly doubts that Vivian will like such a reception. Dylan enthusiastically claims that his plan worked on another girl, but Aslan is not convinced. In the past, the hero was forced to take extreme measures, knowing about her unwillingness to marry him. He looked at the fading Vivian, obsessed with the idea of tying her to himself forever. The only way out of despair was to use the forbidden and bloody brand. This dark ritual forever linked their lives, creating an unbreakable contract between them. But this contract also had a deadly downside, which Dylan warned about. Aslan understood the risk, but in his world, full of enemies, it was the only way out. He could no longer stand idly by, watching as useless medications failed to bring her relief. Returning to the present, the hero reproachfully meets the pale Vivian, suspecting her of escaping. He pulls her towards him, regretting that he did not go with her, and gave in to his dark thoughts. His sudden concern confuses her, but she understands that this is only the calm before the storm. The hero's keen gaze instantly notices the wound and the remnants of someone else's magic, leaving her no chance. Vivian desperately searches for a way out, realizing that any wrong step could be her last. She makes up a clumsy story about a mysterious stranger on the fly to hide the truth. The distrust in Aslan's gaze makes it clear that her weak lie has not convinced him. Suddenly, a brilliant idea comes to her mind, and she decides to use his own secret against him. She describes with sarcasm the ridiculous dance with a rose that he secretly rehearsed. The hero freezes in humiliating shock, realizing that she has mockingly revealed his plan. He invades her personal space, trying to suppress her with his aura and bring her to justice. But Vivian, with a beaming smile, confirms her daring lie, enjoying her little revenge. His cold calm is frightening because he clearly did not believe her clumsy lie. She breathes a sigh of relief when he lets her go, narrowly escaping detection. Their unexpectedly peaceful dinner seems like just a deceptive calm before a new storm. A mysterious letter with a rose becomes a harbinger of fateful events to come. A sudden invitation to hunt in forbidden lands turns out to be a political trap. Behind the polite words of the imperial family, she reads a hidden threat between the lines. The name of Crown Prince Johannes makes her clutch the letter in her hand with fury. She realizes that her main enemy has finally made his move, targeting the sacred forest. The legendary resting place of the first emperor becomes the arena for a new battle. A secret forest, off-limits to mere mortals, holds the key to power. The sacred forest's anti-magic power makes it a deadly place for the cursed hero. His sudden concern for her pale appearance takes the girl by surprise, increasing her panic. She hides her fear behind a mask of support, because missing this event is not an option. Behind her sweet smile lies a terrifying knowledge of the real reason for their visit. Her memory flashes back to the previous poisoning attempt, for which Aslan was unfairly accused. The thought of her medicine being destroyed makes her go cold with horror. Arriving in the forest means they have officially entered the lair of their main enemy. The deceptive, unearthly beauty of this place contrasts sharply with the threat lurking within it. Unexpectedly for herself, the heroine feels relief, because the forest air suppresses her illness. This sudden surge of strength gives birth to a new daring plan in her head to save Aslan. His unexpected request for a good luck kiss puts her in an extremely awkward position. The guy's words take her by surprise, causing her heart to beat in confused confusion. She notices that for other couples, this is a normal ritual, and feels the pressure of other people's gazes on herself. The girl understands that a public refusal will humiliate the Grand Duke and create new problems for her. Gathering her courage, she makes a bold and unexpected move to seize the initiative. Her hasty wish for good luck leaves a stunned Aslan completely confused. He responds with a gallant gesture, promising her the best prey as a sign of his gratitude. Vivian watches him go, realizing that she herself played along in someone else's death trap. She enters a luxurious mansion, where behind the glitter and chic lie hidden major intrigues. Her attentive gaze immediately notes the absence of the Empress, the key figure in this game, in the hall. Whispers spread among the guests about the arrival of the infamous Countess Amelia. Vivian immediately recognizes in this luxurious lady her main goal and the source of all her troubles. A terrible fact comes to her mind. It was Amelia who was the real criminal who framed Aslan. The heroine is amazed by the impudence of the Emperor's mistress, who is preparing her assassination attempt in full view of everyone. Luckily for her, events are unfolding exactly according to the scenario she knew. She remembers clearly that the deadly poison will be served to the Empress in a glass of sparkling wine. Vivian had already hatched a daring plan to stage an accident and discreetly switch the glasses. After her sabotage, she will need to disappear immediately and quietly, without arousing suspicion. But the sudden appearance of Empress Eleanor and the Crown Prince makes her tense. The Crown Prince's cold and formal greeting made her heart skip a beat with a sense of foreboding. The unexpected attention from the Empress ruins all her plans and forces her to be on her guard. She confirms that she will remain in the mansion, not yet knowing what trap they are preparing for her. The Empress's request to serve her becomes a real trap for Vivian. The girl has no choice but to play along, hiding her true intentions. The sudden appearance of the court physician becomes an unpleasant surprise for the heroine. She realizes with horror that they want to examine her to find out when she will finally die. Thoughts of the Empress's mother's past humiliation give this scene an ominous tone. Dr. Pablo's sinister appearance leaves no doubt that this examination is not a simple formality. Under close surveillance, she loses any opportunity to switch the glasses. She found herself in a hopeless situation. On one side was a doctor, on the other, a maid with poison. In a desperate situation, she frantically searches for a way out, realizing that she needs to act immediately. Suddenly, her gaze falls on the sharp tweezers in the doctor's hands, and a daring plan is born in her head. She snatches the instrument with a venomous grin, turning the medical examination into a public farce. Her loud and defiant refusal attracts the attention of all the guests in the room. Vivian deliberately plays the role of a villain in order to masterfully control others' attention. A new plan matures instantly. If she cannot act on her own, she must force someone else to do so. She draws the frightened maid into her game, making her an unwitting accomplice. The heroine cleverly blocks the path of the maid with a tray, preventing her from taking the poisoned glass. Suddenly, she takes out her secret trump card, a magical artifact that can sense any threat. Her scandalous behavior only strengthens her reputation, making everyone believe that what is happening is real. She loudly declares her innocence, creating an impeccable alibi for herself in front of everyone. With the shining artifact in hand, the heroine announces a public inspection, and her trap snaps shut. The terrified maid realizes that she has become a pawn in someone else's game and begs for mercy. The artifact instantly turns black, but Vivian directs her suspicions in a completely different direction. She turns to the shocked doctor with an innocent expression, in complete control of the situation. The girl cleverly suggests that the artifact could have reacted to his unsterile tweezers. She corners the doctor, forcing him to voice what she needs. Pablo's face contorts with horror as he realizes the ingenious trap he has been lured into. Vivian triumphantly proves that the reaction to a glass of wine is many times stronger than to tweezers. The hall explodes in shock when the terrible truth dawns on everyone. The Empress's wine has been poisoned. The Crown Prince takes matters into his own hands, intending to personally interrogate the maid, caught red-handed. The frightened girl is taken away by force, and her desperate cries of innocence are drowned out by the general noise. Vivian is relieved to realize that her mission is accomplished, and now she just needs to disappear unnoticed. She is driven by a terrible knowledge that at sunset, Aslan's magic will go out of control, and she must be nearby. The unexpected praise from the Crown Prince takes her by surprise, disrupting her escape plan. He easily sees through her cunning plan, admiring how she set it all up. The heroine understands that the main villain's penetrating gaze sees right through her. She decides not to lie, but the prince unexpectedly assures her that he already knows about her innocence. Johannes regretfully thinks that such an outstanding woman is too good for his enemy. He lets her go, but his cold and calculating gaze suggests that this is only the beginning of their game. To the hunters in this forest, her fiancé was not a duke, but merely valuable prey. The merciless order has been given. He will not get far. He must be taken alive at any cost. The sacred land drains Aslan's strength, causing his dark magic to spiral out of control. He realizes that his enemies have cunningly used the sanctuary as the perfect weapon against him. Even on the brink of collapse, he mentally challenges Johannes, his merciless pursuer. At the limit of his strength, the hero realizes that he can no longer run and needs to urgently find shelter. His last hope for salvation is the ancient tomb of the first emperor. Having no other choice, he makes a desperate dash towards the forbidden sanctuary. But this refuge has a terrible price. If he cannot withstand its power, he could become a demon forever. He mentally says goodbye to Vivian, realizing that he may never return to her as he was before. Vivian's anxiety grows with each passing minute. As sunset approaches, and Aslan is nowhere to be seen. She knows that because of Johannes's trap, his demonic energy will soon break out. She is haunted by a terrible vision of how he, having turned into a beast, will kill his own people. Casting aside her fear, the girl rushes into the depths of the forest all alone in order to save him. The mixed traces of man and beast on the ground only confirm her most terrible suspicions. Suddenly, she realizes that this path leads to only one place, the Emperor's tomb. The heroine, without hesitation, heads towards the forbidden sanctuary, his last refuge. She prepares for the worst, because if he is here, then he has probably already lost his mind. A sharp sound from the thicket makes her freeze, feeling a foreign, dangerous presence on her. Two glowing red eyes look at her from the darkness, and she realizes that she is too late. The furious roar of the maddened beast shakes the forest, and she prepares for her final battle. In panic, the girl closes her eyes, expecting an inevitable and painful death in the jaws of the monster. But instead of sharp fangs, she feels only a gentle touch, and her world turns upside down. His submissive behavior confuses her, making her suspect some kind of sinister ritual. The huge beast's gaze is full of a strange pleading, as if he is begging her for a simple caress. A sudden realization dawns on her. Her unique ability to tame wild animals has worked. Fear gives way to jubilation, because now this formidable monster has become her obedient and sweet pet. The rain that has started makes her worry, because soon they will both be soaked to the skin. She invites her new friend to take refuge in the building, seeing silent agreement in his eyes. They stand before the forbidden tomb, and she understands that he is not seeking salvation, but only shelter from the rain. She realizes with alarm that inside the tomb, the sacred power is even more powerful and dangerous for Aslan. Suddenly, a huge lion snatches her sword and runs away, leaving her no choice but to follow him. Irritated by his stubbornness, she rushes after him, realizing that now is not the time for games. With the help of a torch, she lights her way, ready for any dangers that await her in the darkness. She carefully enters the dark corridors of the tomb, trying not to let her companion go too far. Even in the semi-darkness, this place amazes her with its grandeur, which she has only seen in books. Leo begins to act restlessly, feeling a strange warmth emanating from the depths of the tomb. A sharp growl makes her flinch, and she calls his name in alarm, trying to calm him down. His sudden aggression frightens her, and she cannot understand what caused such a drastic change. She realizes with horror that Aslan's condition has worsened sharply and that her rash decision was a mistake. She tries to calm the beast, offering him her help to get out of the dangerous place. A sudden sharp pain pierces her body as she accidentally cuts herself on her own sword. The girl is surprised to realize that the formidable lion did not attack, but on the contrary, tried to protect her. She hastens to reassure him, assuring him that her wound is a trifle that can be easily healed. But the sight of her blood only increases his suffering, and he cannot suppress his dark essence. Unable to bear it any longer, he breaks away and runs into the depths of the dark tomb. The heroine rushes after him in panic, fearing that he ran away out of fear for her. Without a second thought, she follows him into the very depths of the ominous mausoleum. Inside, she feels a powerful and ominous aura that she did not feel at all outside. Seeing a familiar coat of arms on the floor, she unmistakably understands that she has found the source of this dark power. A sudden revelation strikes her when she recognizes the symbol as the crest of her Eleanor family. This ancient badge of honor was bestowed upon her ancestor, the only companion of the first emperor. She realizes that this is not just a tomb, but the final resting place of her legendary ancestor. She is touched by the thought that the emperor, even after death, wished to remain close to his friend. Suddenly, she notices Aslan lying on the floor and fears that the holy aura of the tomb has harmed him. But his look, full of pain, tells her that he suffers not from holiness, but from his monstrous nature. She playfully, reproachfully tries to lure him out, calling him her little lion cub. Her trick works, and he obediently rises to follow his savior. Suddenly, a huge beast rushes at the people who appeared out of nowhere, sowing chaos and death around. The girl watches the bloody carnage in complete shock, unable to understand what is happening. A thought strikes her. These assassins were sent by Johannes to capture Aslan. She realizes that the killers were following her, and now Aslan must save her. She clutches the sword, proving that she did not come here empty-handed. Her unexpected attack takes the enemy by surprise, ruining all their plans. The killers are shocked by her skill, not expecting such resistance from the fragile lady. A merciless order to kill the witness escapes his lips, but he does not see the beast behind him. Her words are a challenge to Johannes, who has gone too far in his obsession with Aslan. A terrible secret is revealed. In Aslan's veins flows a power capable of resurrecting the devil himself. Johannes doesn't want to kill him, because then the curse will pass on to him. His true plan is far more terrifying: to turn Aslan into a living dead man and imprison him forever. Her heart burns with injustice because she knows that he did nothing wrong. She recalls that Aslan never craved power, becoming only a victim of other people's intrigues. His entire path was forged in a brutal struggle for survival, not in the pursuit of glory. All around her lie fallen enemies, but only a bitter aftertaste remains in her soul. The more she thinks about it, the more righteous anger boils up inside her. She realizes that her unique ability is not a gift, but a double-edged sword. Her gentle touch calms the beast raging within him, restoring peace to him. With an understanding smile, she accepts his stubbornness, deciding not to drive him away anymore. She gently warns him that this is a dangerous place, not as good as it seems. Her words sound like an unbreakable vow that no matter what happens, she will always be there. His touch brings her back to reality, blurring the line between beast and man. In his eyes, she sees not a monster, but only a tired young man who has overdone it again. Due to the stress and fatigue she experienced, she loses consciousness, falling to the floor with a lifeless body. He decides to stay by her side to protect her until she comes to her senses. Even in her sleep, she mutters about her victory, dreaming of bragging about how she tamed a formidable lion. He kisses her tenderly, realizing that this time she will have nothing to brag about. The hero bitterly realizes that his curse lifted earlier than he expected, and she saw his weakness. Thanks to her dedication, the future curse that was supposed to destroy him subsided. He takes her hand gently, amazed at how fragile and tiny it feels in his palm. His heart is breaking with pain, because even in the form of a beast, he was afraid of only one thing: hurting her. He admits that he secretly hoped that she would not turn away from him herself, having seen his true nature. It hurts him to think that he hurt her, because he longs for a deeper connection, not this curse. For the first time, he opens his heart, admitting that he really desperately wants to win her love. But his love is darkened by the bitter knowledge that one day she will have to leave a monster like him. And yet, despite his dark side, he just can't bring himself to let go of her hand. The next morning, the forest greets them with a deceptive calm, washing away all the horrors of the previous night. The girl wakes up refreshed, not even realizing who was actually guarding her sleep. But her calm instantly evaporates when she realizes that Aslan is nowhere to be found. She sees him with his people, and her heart sinks with concern for his unhealed wounds. He turns around at her call, and a whole storm of unspoken emotions can be read in the hero's gaze. She desperately tries to hide the fact that she knows his terrible secret about turning into a black lion. The girl feigns concern, reproaching him for his long absence, and he can only apologize guiltily. He doesn't want to make excuses, but his heavy gaze reveals a whole storm of unspoken words. Suddenly, his attention is drawn to her wound, and genuine concern can be heard in the hero's voice. She clumsily lies that she simply fell while looking for him, hoping that he will believe her. His unexpected and firm promise to learn to take care of her takes her by surprise. Without a second thought, he tears off a piece of his clothing to bandage it. He kneels before her, carefully bandaging the wound with a care she didn't expect. His unexpected tenderness touches her deeply, making her heart beat faster. A terrible guess pierces her. Perhaps he subconsciously remembers that he himself inflicted this wound on her. Ignoring her protests, he picks the girl up on his back, not wanting to let her go even a step. Her confused objections are drowned out by his silent determination to be there for her and protect her. For the first time, he admits to his vulnerability, reminding him that even he makes mistakes, because he is human. His frank admission that he loses his head around her takes her by surprise. He bitterly apologizes for failing to keep his promise and putting her in mortal danger alone. She mentally justifies him, realizing that his monstrous transformation was not his fault. In response to his revelation, she hints that she, too, has a secret that explains her lateness. With a gentle smile, she accepts his secret, making it clear that she doesn't need any explanations at all. Her wise words about how some secrets are best kept in the shadows give him unexpected peace. He thinks about her words, and a faint hope for their future together flashes in his eyes. A playful smile hints that he reads her mind perfectly and knows about her true feelings. Her insightful words make her blush, and she fears she has gone too far. Embarrassed to the limit, she hurries him, but he only laughs cheerfully in response to her impatience. Finally, they reach Aslan's temporary home, which promises them a short respite. He immediately surrounds her with care, ordering the servants to prepare everything for her comfort and rest. Waking up in an unfamiliar, luxurious bedroom, she tries to figure out where she is and what happened. His subtle correction from your room to ours betrays his possessive intentions. Suddenly, she is overcome with panic at the thought that her brother must already be looking for her. Despite her anxiety, she can't help but enjoy the incredible softness of the bed, worthy of kings. The bold announcement that they will share this room leaves her in complete shock. The guy explains his powerful act as touching concern. The heroine is stunned by his proposal, not knowing whether to believe him. She realizes the true extent of his sacrifice for her comfort. Shame at her own mistrust makes her show awkward concern. The hero completely disarms the girl with his slight smirk. The sound of her own name from his lips makes her heart skip a beat. His predatory gaze and ambiguous phrase leave no doubt. The young man closes the distance, and she panics. His powerful touch forces the heroine to come to terms with the situation. The tension between them finally finds release in the inevitable kiss. The sudden appearance of a rival ruins the hero's intimate moment. The girl is stunned by the news, which turns everything upside down. Tensions reach their peak when Vivian demands an explanation from Aslan. The heroine realizes that she has become a pawn in someone else's game about a secret engagement. The absurd failure of someone else's plan reveals the comical nature of the whole situation. Burning with shame, she realizes what a huge mistake she almost made. The offer to leave puts her before a difficult choice between duty and feelings. Aslan's dark aura clearly hints at the consequences of his jealousy. The scene changes abruptly, transferring the intrigue to the palace of the Empress herself. The prince's satisfied grin suggests that everything is going according to his plan. Behind the Empress's apparent calm lies a cold calculation. She enjoys her victory, having gotten rid of her hated rival. In the dungeon, someone else's life is destroyed by cruel palace intrigues. The past comes flooding back, full of misjudgment and bloody omens. The Empress recalls how frivolously she treated the girl's threat. But Vivian turned out to be not so simple, shining brighter than all expectations. Mother and son exchange knowing glances, their common goal clear. Under the pretext of caring, they weave a new web of intrigue for their enemies. The insidious hope for someone else's joy only covers up their true motives. The young man is ready to use any means to strengthen his power. The Empress's command sounds like the beginning of a deadly game. Under the guise of politeness, the heroine senses a hidden threat in the ruler's words. A risky plan is born in her head, the last hope for salvation. Dark memories reveal that her past faith was only part of his cruel script. The greatest deception in the history of the Empire began with desperate faith in a false doctor. The revelation of the lie drives the past Vivian to complete and devastating despair. Blind rage pushes her to take a fatal step, resulting in the death of an innocent victim. The terrible truth about her past death at the hands of Aslan deals a crushing blow. A chilling horror from the past makes her doubt her safety. A sudden attack turns a fleeting worry into a deafening cry of terror. His sudden appearance and caring tone take Vivian by surprise. The alarm in the boy's voice revealed how much he feared for her life. The girl understands that despite the luxurious reception, she was on the verge of death. Thoughts about her rival's ridiculous behavior cause her belated irritation. The hero's gaze makes her forget all the grievances, and she is angry at herself for it. The heroine's inner voice demands satisfaction for all the suffering she has endured. Aslan's promise to fulfill any wish sounds like absolute capitulation. His request for forgiveness, reinforced by a tender gesture, deprives her of her will. The incredible proposal makes her heart skip a beat in amazement. A daring plan instantly emerges in the girl's head, her chance for everything or nothing. Realizing her chance, the heroine decides to go all in with a beaming smile. Memories of past humiliation only strengthen her resolve. A sudden pity for his dejected appearance almost makes her retreat. Having gathered her courage, the girl prepares to voice her main condition. She demands from Aslan a full and honest confession of all his misdeeds. The young man struggles to find his words, admitting only partial guilt. Vivian interrupts him, pointing out the real reason for her anger. Her direct question about trusting strangers baffles him. Finally realizing his mistake, the hero sincerely repents of his short-sightedness. Having received the correct answer, she notes with satisfaction his awkward but honest attempt. Vivian, with a playful grin, sets him a clearly impossible condition. She perceives her request as the perfect revenge, being confident of his failure. The guy stuns her with his willingness to sacrifice his title for her forgiveness. Aslan brazenly turns the tables by demanding a public kiss as his reward. The thought of an ancient tradition and public recognition makes the girl blush. This kiss is not just a reward, but a centuries-old ritual of declaring one's love. His self-confidence is astonishing because he dictates the terms while being in the position of the one asking. Confident of his inevitable defeat, the heroine easily accepts his challenge. 2 days later, a shocking picture proves how much she underestimated him. The incredible size of his prey serves as a formidable reminder of his true strength. Her confidence in the other's victory crumbles to dust at the sight of his trophy. The opponent with a bouquet of roses looks like an undisputed winner and a romantic hero. The heroine, in despair, decides to run away, not wanting to accept a humiliating defeat. His public announcement of dedicating the victory to his fiancée leaves her in shock. The guy's ingratiating question leaves her no choice, driving her into a corner of their agreement. Having acknowledged her presumption, the girl resigns herself to the need to keep her promise. His teasing question catches her off guard, revealing her extreme excitement. Her embarrassed excuses only emphasize the innocence of this exciting moment. Fear of the crowd's condemnation and possible rumors makes her desperately hesitate. Ignoring her protests, he gently takes the initiative to put an end to all the rumors. The unexpected tenderness of his touch makes her heart pound wildly. Still in the grip of the kiss, she can barely meet his worried gaze. The girl desperately tries to attribute her excitement to the festive atmosphere. Aslan's resounding victory completely overshadowed the scandal, changing the balance of power. The dramatic finale of the tournament finally quenched the thirst for spectacle in the entire court. Returning to the castle gives her a faint hope for a long-awaited peaceful life. Her dream of peace is instantly shattered by mountains of accumulated work. The news of his grandiose orders for reorganization shocked everyone. Endless choice and catalogs plunged the heroine into a new kind of chaos. Drowning in meaningless details, she desperately wonders how she ended up here. All this commotion is just a harbinger of her coming of age. Meanwhile, the mysterious stranger is already weaving his intrigue. The upcoming holiday becomes the perfect cover for him. Her name on paper creates an anxious anticipation in the soul. The endless proposals and fashion sketches only add to her stress. The girl feels completely broken under the weight of responsibility. The accumulated tension brings her to the brink of physical exhaustion. With a final effort, she sends her assistants away in search of silence. The sudden appearance of a stranger disturbs her fragile privacy. His innocent request to take measurements contains a hidden threat. The faithful servant offers to escort the uninvited guest out, but the heroine hesitates to answer. A familiar brooch on the young man's clothing becomes the key to a shocking guess. She realizes with horror that a key character from her past stands before her. The defender tries to make the insolent man look like he is, unaware of his true nature. Vivian's unexpected intervention leaves her faithful servant completely stumped. Reluctantly, Dylan obeys, leaving his mistress alone to face the danger. Under the guise of politeness, the girl tries to find out the true motives for his visit. His innocent appearance turns out to be just a deceptive mask, hiding dark magic. The young man revels in his ability to deceive even the most formidable defender. His defiant childishness only confirms her worst fears about his intolerable nature. Jesus, with a smug look, confirms her guess about dark magic. The unexpected obstacle the young man mentions destroys her hope for a quick solution. The guest's sudden seriousness makes her tense in anticipation of an unpleasant question. The demon's ominous name that escaped his lips connects her curse with something terrible. His direct question about the past sends her into a tide of disturbing memories. A flash of memory about a mysterious pentagram on the hero's back becomes the first clue. The realization that the mark does not resemble an imprint gives rise to a new, frightening theory. She understands that her connection with Aslan is not a sacred ritual, but something else. The revelation that the magic circle was suppressing her illness turns everything upside down. The terrifying realization that their lives are now bound by a deadly contract becomes clear. The realization that her life now depends on him plunges the girl into cold horror. Jesus' secrecy only convinces her of the need to extract the whole truth from him. The heroine hides her panic behind a mask of sarcasm, trying to seize the initiative. Her caustic politeness is just a ploy to get him to lay all his cards on the table. The young man calmly parries her attack, pretending that the conversation is over. The guest's sly grin made it clear that she had fallen right into his trap. His words hit home, and her face contorts with sudden insight. The secret of her salvation turns out to be hidden in the purity of her ancient bloodline. The girl learns that her origins have unwittingly become a shield against the full curse. The sudden revelation of her origins proves that the plot has changed without her knowledge. She bitterly admits that her cunning turned against her, leaving her a fool. His smug and childish behavior causes a wave of disgust in the heroine. Sudden footsteps outside the door make her heart stop in alarming anticipation. Jesus calmly acknowledges Aslan's arrival, hinting at the need to disappear immediately. The hero's appearance, full of genuine concern, dramatically changes the atmosphere in the room. His piercing gaze suggests that simple concern is only the tip of the iceberg of his suspicions. The boy's cheeky whisper in his ear confirms that he had it all planned out from the start. Aslan's suspicions collide with an innocent pretext, raising even more questions. The discrepancy in his expectations only increases the hero's distrust of the uninvited guest. The cold interrogation begins, and Aslan is determined to reveal the identity of the mysterious assistant. Aslan's icy distrust shines through in every question he asks about the strange visit. The young man parries his attack with a cheeky compliment, skillfully playing his role. Jesus' charming public performance conceals a cunning commercial secret. Vivian, in a panic, admires his impeccable acting skills and composure. A terrible thought flashes through her head, that the hero is about to reveal his true identity. She realizes that Aslan's insight could turn this meeting into a deadly trap. The hero's commanding tone leaves the boy no choice but to leave immediately. Under the pretext of forgetfulness, the guest leaves her a secret message, and she mentally hurries him to leave. His farewell smile promises a new meeting, leaving behind a trail of innuendo. The heroine's awkward laughter barely conceals her relief that Aslan has taken the bait. His gentle offer to take care of all her worries sounds like a royal decree. The girl's playful protest only emphasizes her new confidence in their relationship. Aslan's sudden and powerful gesture takes her by surprise, causing her heart to stop. She understands that the most important thing now is to restore her strength for the upcoming event. Her sincere concern for him is rewarded with a touch full of tenderness. The hero's unusual confusion reveals the depth of his hidden feelings. The sudden insight into his embarrassment gives her a fleeting feeling of superiority. She, with a slight smile, prompts him the correct answer in this awkward situation. His sincere gratitude, shining in his eyes, disarms her completely. The young man admits with surprise that he likes this unusual feeling. She realizes with a smile that she is changing for the better when she is around him. His thoughts take him to an icy past full of loneliness and exile. Memories of pain and the smell of one's own blood come alive with renewed vigor. The opponent's cruel words about the dirty beast still echo in the empty halls. He can't believe how this fragile girl was able to conquer his wild castle. The unexpected appearance of a servant breaks him out of his reverie, making him wary. A new invitation from the crown prince becomes a harbinger of more troubles. He understands that her rival will not back down and will cling to her polite refusal. His cold order to tear up the letter shows complete disregard for the consequences. He declares with a predatory grin that he will personally take full responsibility for this impudent refusal. Her concern for Aslan makes her heart clench with foreboding. She watches in pain as he burns himself to the ground for the sake of duty and training. The terrible knowledge of his future deal with the devil from the original haunts her. The realization that his death means her end throws the heroine into panic. The instinct of self-preservation makes her cast aside her fear and start thinking coolly. A dark vision of the future, where the enemy ascends to the throne, becomes her main motivation. The only way to survive is a daring and almost impossible plan to crown Aslan. A powerful army, loyal only to him, becomes her first trump card in this game. Countless riches and a legendary sword give him almost unlimited possibilities. The only weak point in her perfect plan remains his terrible reputation among the people. The impossible task of repairing his reputation drives the girl into complete despair. Suddenly, a bold thought comes to her mind. If you cannot elevate your own, destroy your enemy. Realizing that no one will come to her aid, she decides to take her own survival into her own hands. Desperation pushes her to take a risky step, forcing her to remember a long-forgotten method. The next morning becomes the starting point for her most daring and dangerous plan. Her sudden attack is only the first act in the play, throwing the faithful servant into panic. Feigning mortal weakness, she extracts from him an oath to fulfill any of her requests. Blinded by concern for his mistress, the young man gives her his unbreakable word without hesitation. A short whisper in his ear becomes the beginning of a secret operation into which he is now drawn. Her ultimate goal is the imperial palace, and this news sounds like a declaration of war. Under the pretext of treatment, the girl announces her risky visit to the palace. The news that her allies were already looking for this doctor takes Vivian by surprise. The servant's excuses about simple caution only strengthen her suspicions of a conspiracy. The terrible thought that Aslan might get ahead of her makes the girl panic. She understands that this fake doctor is just a pawn in the crown prince's deadly game. Exposing a doctor's fraud could tip the scales and crush her enemy. There is no time to think, and the heroine makes a firm decision to strike first. Using all her charm, she convinces her loyal assistant to go against orders. A desperate plea and a coughing fit become the final argument in her manipulation. Meanwhile, a smug and confident Johannes is already waiting for her in his chambers. His feigned resentment at her delay only increases the tension between them. Under the mask of submission, the heroine hides her true, decisive motive for the visit. She strikes first by asking directly about the doctor and watches his reaction. Her desperate plea for help is just a calculated move in a deadly game. His cold refusal throws her into confusion, ruining her original plan. He reveals his insidious plan, turning her hope into a new, more sophisticated trap. Under the guise of care, he offers her a golden cage, and she is forced to feign gratitude. Her slightest hesitation does not escape his keen gaze, and he begins to suspect something is wrong. The girl cleverly changes tactics, covering up her true concerns with concern for others. Her noble argument about the fate of ordinary people is a last, desperate attempt to escape his clutches. Her cold calculation hits the mark, forcing him to consider the consequences. He takes a step forward, accepting her terms and starting his own game. His cunning counteroffer turns her victory into a joint, even more dangerous plan. An elite hospital becomes the perfect stage for the upcoming grand deception. The higher he exalts his favorite, the more crushing will be his fall. An exchange of false pleasantries cements their unspoken pact, full of poison and intrigue. The distant palace becomes a symbol of a new goal, to which all roads now lead. She is relieved to realize that the first stage of her risky plan has been successful. The inevitable deal between the doctor and the prince is now only a matter of time. The anxious voice of a faithful servant suddenly interrupts her triumph, foreshadowing new problems. The faithful servant's warning about the prince's feud sounds like a mortal threat. She confirms that their hatred is based on an ancient curse. His offer to become a go-between is a desperate attempt to protect her from her master's jealousy. The girl understands that any connection with the enemy will arouse Aslan's dark suspicions. With a warm smile, she decides to trust the servant, but to deal with Aslan personally. His enthusiastic vow of allegiance gives her a fragile hope of success. The hero's sudden appearance disrupts her privacy and all her secret plans. His silent invasion of her personal space creates an oppressive atmosphere. The heavy silence of the guy on her bed makes her blood run cold. Anxiety for a faithful servant is mixed with fear of his unpredictable reaction. Bitter regret about her own mistrust forces the heroine to admit her mistake. Her confusion gives way to surprise, because Aslan already knows the whole truth from his faithful servant. The weight of guilt weighs on the guy, because he was unable to become someone she could trust. A sudden revelation turns her world upside down, because his silence was not anger, but remorse. The girl tries to justify her selfish act, but he seems to have already understood everything. His tender words and caring look give her not forgiveness, but complete acceptance. Freed from the burden of guilt, Vivian, with a beaming smile, promises him that she will recover. She breathes a sigh of relief, grateful for his generosity and tact. An unexpected nervousness makes her remember a forgotten kiss. awakening old feelings. The sudden closeness and his gentle touch create a new, exciting atmosphere between them. The memory of a past passion makes her doubt the present. She begins the conversation gently, knowing she is treading into dangerous territory. His icy anger at the talkative servant betrays hidden jealousy and control. The girl hastens to reassure him, turning his anger into a reason for gratitude. Her small victory brings great relief, confirming his innocence. The sudden news of his departure interrupts the moment of intimacy, bringing them back to reality. He regretfully reports his debt, as if apologizing for the forced separation. Her warm smile and understanding words free him from guilt. His heart melts from her selfless care, so innocent and sincere. Despite her light, he leaves, immersed in the familiar darkness of self-flagellation. 3 days later, in the silence of luxurious chambers, a new plan is hatched. The absence of a biography in the newspaper becomes the first alarm bell. She admits with annoyance that she underestimated the enemy's cunning and foresight. Not wanting to wait any longer, the heroine resolutely prepares her next move. Aslan's absence becomes a window of opportunity for her that cannot be missed. Arriving at the target marks the beginning of the most dangerous part of her risky game. The majestic hospital becomes a battlefield where reputation is the main weapon. Her sudden appearance in society immediately attracts the poisonous attention of gossips. Behind her, there is a contemptuous whisper condemning her modest outfit. Hidden superiority and cold confidence become her best answer to their ignorance. The faithful servant's concern about her modest appearance only confirms the correctness of her choice. She notes with a slight smile that this is exactly how ordinary people think. Only those who truly understand fashion can understand the true value of her outfit. Her plan requires finding someone who can spread the necessary rumors without being noticed. Everyone's attention pins her to the spot, making it almost impossible to find her target. The manager's appearance becomes a salvation, taking her away from the sight of prying eyes. The luxurious interiors of the upper floor only emphasize the status of the ladies gathered here. Among the idle crowd, only influential and famous aristocrats can be seen. The heroine's gaze stops on the ideal candidate, capable of launching her intrigue. The faithful servant, ahead of her thoughts, had already prepared the ideal place to begin the conversation. A perfect plan is ruined by the clumsy misstep of a loyal but overzealous servant. The coat of arms on the fan instantly reveals the identity of the target, confirming its high status. The marquise's cautious nature makes her unsuitable for gossip, forcing the heroine to change tactics. Vivian is a master at using awkward situations to strike up a conversation with the right person. The marquise accepts the apology with a smile, unwittingly playing along with her performance. The good-natured response of the interlocutor confirms her reputation, making the next step easier. An unexpected comment about the Duke's concern becomes the perfect start to her intrigue. She cleverly uses geography as a pretext to emphasize the fame of her knight. The Marquise's words create in the eyes of society the image of an immensely caring and loving groom. The cold truth hits her. This is not security, but a sophisticated spy network. The appearance of the key figure in her plan marks the beginning of the final act. Before her appears the very same impostor, whose smug smile conceals a deadly trap. His